It witnessed the most horrific experience in my life that I never wanted to recall. That day was the 3rd, and I was expecting a wholesome party. Every year, one day before July the 4th, my family would hold a party and invite a few neighbors to join. While setting the dining table, I tried to strike up a conversation with Harley, a new neighbor who just moved in.
Did you know that Americans consume about 150 million hot dogs on the 4th of July?
I foolishly tried to start up a conversation with her.
Really?
Better than I expected, she smiled and seemed friendly to me. Just like that, Harley and I talked and arranged the dining table together for a while. Two families sat around the cozy dining table and enjoyed delicious food. While sipping a glass of wine, I suddenly noticed a figure looming in the window.
Jack, can you pass me the salt, please?
I lost focus for a bit, and the figure disappeared.
I probably looked wrong,
I thought.
Are you okay?
Harley kindly asked me.
Yeah, of course,
I replied. Everyone enjoyed the meal. Seeing that the bottle was running out of wine, I went to the kitchen to get another one. However, as soon as I entered, once again, I saw that figure at the window. He was very tall, probably more than 6 feet. In his hand was a scythe, from which some liquid was flowing out. I narrowed my eyes to take a closer look. I was so startled that I almost dropped the bottle. His eyes were deep, his beard shaggy, and when he opened his mouth, his teeth were sharp as knives.
Jackson? Jackson!
Harley's voice made me jump from my skin.
Are you all right?
I'm fine.
My gaze remained on the strange man. He walked slowly out of my yard. Only now did I realize he was dressed like Uncle Sam.
Oh, no!
I suddenly blurted out when I saw him climb into a house in the distance. Oh my God, he looked like the contortionists I saw on the internet.
Jackson!
Harley shook me.
Oh, sorry,
I said confusedly. After finishing the dinner, the Harley family said goodbye to us.
Thank you for the meal and happy 4th of July.
Harley said as we were outside the door.
Wait! Harley, is your house over there?
I pointed in the direction of the house. That was the house that strange man climbed into.
Yeah?
Harley looked at me. She seemed puzzled.
Don't go in there!
I said. Everyone was surprised at my strange behavior, so I told them what happened. Although the story was somewhat mythical, at my insistence, Harley's family agreed to call the police. After checking the house, the police found nothing, not even a single footprint.
Maybe he was mistaken. Hey, son, don't drink too much on the 4th of July.
An officer talked to me before getting into the car. That night, Harley texted me first. She comforted me that nothing would happen and that it wasn't a big deal for me to be mistaken. Before going to bed, I looked over at Harley's house right at the moment she turned off the lights. But suddenly, I caught a glimpse of that man again, and he even seemed to be waving at me.
This will be the last time I drink this much.
I rubbed my eyes, shook my head, and went back to bed. The next morning, I was startled awake by the sound of police sirens. There were many police cars parked in front of Harley's house. At that point, several stretchers were brought from the house.
What happened?
I asked a police officer.
Son, I'm sorry,
he told me, then patted my shoulder. From the police officer's words, I knew that the Harley family was killed. They said there was a terrible smell inside. The whole house was covered in blood, like a horror movie. All the victims died from very deep slashes caused by a very sharp weapon.
Like a scythe.
I said unconsciously while the policeman was looking at me in surprise. I trembled when I remembered the man who climbed into Harley's house. He held the scythe firmly in his hand. The murderer's identity was still a mystery. He left with no trace, no camera recording, no evidence, as if he never existed. 1 year passed since this terrible massacre. Every year, my family still celebrates the 4th of July, but it is no longer as exciting as before. And I have not seen that strange man again. After dinner, I went back to my room, and when I looked out the window, I suddenly saw a shadowy figure again, a scythe in his hand. Oh no! He's back!
Hi everyone, it's Alexa, and this is my daily makeup look. Do you like the Hooters work uniform? If so, let me know in the comments.
I have to admit, I'm lucky enough to have a good look. Thanks to this body, I can work at Hooters while making videos on TikTok to pay for my studies and daily expenses. As usual, I arrived at the Hooters restaurant at 16:30 to prepare for my shift. Recently, the media has been reporting on the unexplained disappearances of Hooters girls. Therefore, I avoid working the night shift for the sake of my safety. However, it's Saturday night and there's a girl off unexpectedly, so I have to take her place.
Come on Alexa, cheer up. Let's get $1,000 tonight.
I talk to myself and start my work. I was so busy that I forgot about the missings. I run back and forth to write orders, carry things, clean, and sometimes even take photos with customers. Saturday night, huh? A beer for me, please. For your information, in Hooters, polite men who simply want to enjoy a drink like this are extremely rare. He introduces himself as Adam. I'm used to being stared at every part of my body, but today the man sitting in the corner made me extremely uncomfortable. It's been half an hour, but he hasn't ordered anything. I happily pour beer for Adam and walk over to the old man's table while his eyes stuck on my chest.
Sir?
It's an old man about 50 years old. He wears filthy clothes and has a perverted look in his eyes. Even worse, he couldn't even close his mouth, drooling profusely while his eyes stuck on my chest.
Sir?
I call a few times, but he doesn't answer. Instead, his eyes keep staring at me as if he wants to eat me alive. Annoyed, I give up and go back to my counter. I know I should tell my manager, but first I have to stream a video on TikTok as promised.
Hello guys, as promised, let's count the tips with me.
The thick pile of money makes me feel a bit better.
Okay, first $100 from a handsome guy sitting right across from the bar. Another $50 bill at table 3, another $50. Only $10 from table 8. Can you believe it? Why is that man so cheap? But that's not the worst bad luck in the evening.
Then I turned the phone to the corner of the shop where the old man was sitting.
Guys, he's been sitting here for an hour and hasn't ordered anything. He's just staring at me. If you don't have money, then don't go to a restaurant.
As soon as I finish speaking, comments pop up. My followers are so kind. I get startled when I make eye contact with him. I hurriedly put my phone away and pretend nothing happened. Even from a distance, I could clearly see the anger on his face. Is that really the kidnapper on TV? No wonder why he is angry when I film him like that.
God, I have to tell the manager.
Hey, is something wrong? My thoughts are interrupted by Adam, the handsome guy, but my mind and attention are on the old man in the corner of the shop. In the distance, I see him slowly getting up and walking towards me. My heart rate increases with each step he takes.
Sir, how can I help you?
I try to keep myself calm and professional.
You rat!
How dare you film me? He slapped me hard. My whole body trembles with pain and fear, but he doesn't care. Right after that, he grabs my neck and screams, "Where is that video? Delete it! Delete it!" Another punch lands on me, then 2, 3 more. Due to the shock, I can't even open my mouth to cry for help. My whole body gets numb and bleeding. Everyone gets up to film the scuffle, but no one stops the old man. Another fist is being raised, and I can do nothing but close my eyes. But a few seconds later, nothing happens. "What are you doing? Let me go!" Slowly opening my eyes, I see the old man being held by Adam. And like a hero, he pushes the old man to the floor. And that really works. He quickly runs away after throwing out a sentence that makes me shiver. "Don't let me catch you." Because of the shuffle, the Hooters restaurant is closed earlier than usual. For fear of the perverted old man stalking me, Adam suggests that I should not go home alone. When the car has been running for a while, I ask him,
Do you have any plans for tonight?
"What do you mean?" Adam asks thoughtfully. I replied,
Oh, I mean, what are you going to do after taking me home?
but then the smile on Adam's face changes. "Who says I will take you home?" I also think Adam has a crush on me, but I don't think he intends to go that far. But then, Adam seems angry and breaks the silence. "Damn, old man, you hurt my goods." He then turns around with a sinister smile. "But don't worry, after I kill you, I will clean you to bring back the good looking."
My name's Amanda, and I'm a freshman in fashion design. I've just moved to a new city and can't wait to get a decent room. And of course, meet someone with similar interests to become roommates. Since I didn't have a place to stay and didn't want to waste money for the motel, I brought my suitcase to school to do the admission procedures. I noticed a girl approaching me.
Hi, newbie. I'm Jessie.
It was a senior from the same industry. I was lucky, that's what I thought. Not only does Jessie share the same interests as me, but she is also willing to let me stay at her house because there's still an empty room left.
The only downside is that my house is in the suburbs.
That means my road to school will take a little longer, but in return I will have a quiet space to unleash my creativity. Then Jessie gave me her home address and disappeared. It took half a day to complete the admission procedure. Took a taxi and arrived after 30 minutes. It was getting dark. Jessie was standing at the gate of a 2-story house, patiently waiting for me. Then she helped me carry the suitcase inside the house. It was dark outside, but it was even darker inside because Jessie didn't turn on the lights. I don't dare question it because I think she has her own rules for her house. After going through the living room, dining room, and up the stairs, I began to see the faint light bounce back. At the end of the hallway is my bedroom. For some unknown reason, I got goosebumps on the back of my neck. I felt like dozens of eyes were staring at me from behind. I turned around and got jump scared. At the end of the corridor, and not only 1, 2, but dozens of mannequins lined up. Jessie giggled.
You're not used to these things? Take your time, and you'll love it.
Her expression made me feel embarrassed. Was the let the light off situation earlier also her joke? I thought. Then I was led down the hallway and stopped in front of an old door.
So this is your room. I hope you like it.
As soon as I entered the room, I felt extremely excited. Not only did Jessie keep the room clean, but she also set up a few mannequins in the corner to help me practice. Oh, Jessie, I don't know how to thank you enough. After chit-chatting for the whole night, I went to bed at around 11 o'clock. When I was dozing off, I suddenly heard the melodious music echoing back, seemingly coming from the first floor. Didn't Jessie say this place is so quiet? Why is there music at 2 a.m.? Unable to fall back asleep, I followed the music and was led down to the dining room. What the hell is this? As soon as I walked down the hall, I was horrified to see Jessie holding a mannequin and dancing passionately. I couldn't see it clearly, but in the dim chandelier light, I could see a mannequin's arm hanging loosely and being swayed by Jessie. I moved closer, intending to call out, but just then I froze. It's not a mannequin, but a human. Jessie's dancing with the torso of a corpse. Panic surges through me, my body shook with fear. I have to get out of here immediately. But when I was about to run, I accidentally tripped on something soft. Immediately a fishy smell hit my nose, straight to my brain. I realized my hands were smeared in mucus. You must be kidding me. In the darkness, I noticed 2 or 3 other mannequins lying around beside me. Or they're not. Oh my gosh, they are definitely not mannequins. They are human corpses. I was falling to the pile of corpses. Suddenly my mind went blank, and everything quickly blurred in front of my eyes. Before I lost consciousness, I could still hear Jessie's voice say,
Say hello to your new friends.
Come home. Sleepy as she was, she hurried downstairs to meet her father. But something was odd. Daddy was not as happy as usual. He staggered up the stairs, glared at Elsa, then stepped straight to his room and slammed the door. While walking across her parents' room, Elsa heard an argument. This wasn't the first time her parents had had a quarrel, but this time Daddy seemed strangely violent. Worried about her mother, she immediately pushed the door and ran in. Daddy pushed Mommy down on the bed and yelled at her. He was acting like a monster, which made her so scared to step back. At that moment, she remembered her teacher's words.
Whenever you're in danger, call 911.
No time to think. She quickly grabbed the phone on the table and ran out of the room, leaving the insane father there with her mom.
Please, please!
When the ringing tone of the call connection rang, she prayed silently.
911, where's your emergency?
The dispatcher quickly picked up the phone.
Please, help! I need help!
She sobbed.
We're coming. Just don't hang up. Don't hang up, okay?
The dispatcher reassured her. The quarrel became more and more serious. Elsa panicked even more when she saw her parents starting to struggle and push each other. She sat in the corner of the room, covering her ears and crying in fear. The mother broke away from her abusive husband and quickly ran towards Elsa. "Aw, shoot! Where do you think you're going?" The potted plant was shattered. Her mother was lying on the ground, moaning in pain. Her right arm was broken and twisted, and the white bone was sticking out. Elsa and her younger sister were hiding in the closet. They sat still for so long until getting quite sure that their father wasn't around anymore. Elsa was about to get out of the closet. Boo! The father suddenly opened the door. Elsa's mother, from behind, swung the lamp at the father's head, giving him a blackout sudden enough to throw Elsa away. Her mom seized the chance to bring the 2 daughters out of the house, headed straight for the car, and locked it from inside. The father, holding his bleeding head, chased to the car. "Where are you going? Where are you going?" The angry man banged on the window. After hugging 2 little daughters to reassure them, the mother started the engine. But as soon as they drove away, the father suddenly jumped in front of the car. Mom braked sharply. She ran out of the car to find the father lying on the ground, rolling over in pain. "Bastard! You kill me! I gotta kill you too!" The father was still trying to scream. In the mother's hand was a rock from the lawn, and her eyes were filled with hatred.
No! Mommy!
Elsa stopped her mom before she did something unwise. The mom couldn't hold her tears as Elsa was also crying. She hugged her daughter, sobbing and crying.
Dad, please stop! It's me, Elsa! Your little Elsa!
Elsa turned her head toward her father. When he saw tears on his daughter's face, he realized something.
Oh, my poor Elsa.
Now he was wide awake.
My father is bleeding! Please come and help!
In the little girl's hand was still the phone which was connected to the dispatcher.
Don't worry, Daddy.
Elsa wiped her tear as she was looking at her father. After the incident, Dad had completely changed. He didn't even touch a drop of alcohol. The house was once again full of joy and happiness.
Hey, honey, we're back.
That's why I decided to use Airbnb, an application that made it easy for landlords to find guests, and for guests to easily find a suitable apartment. As I said, home rental service is competitive, but I got lucky when Airbnb notified me about a booking from Tim and Iris, who wanted to find accommodation for 4 days and 3 nights. For your information, to book a room on Airbnb, customers would need to have a profile and submit a request a few days in advance. Tim's profile was quite reliable. His post showed that he had lots of experience in the previous homestays. When they came to my apartment, both of them were very friendly, even though they had been driving for more than 4 hours.
The rental rate includes all services such as electricity and water. Please turn off all electrical equipment when not in use to avoid fire and explosion incidents. Should there be any requests, please call me or the manager.
I see. Don't worry, Tim gently replied. The check-in procedure went smoothly because the 2 guests did not have any special requests. After talking through house rules, I gave them the key and left. If you were wondering why I trusted my customers so easily, I will let you know. In every rental agreement, to make sure that nothing unexpected happened and also for security, I put a hidden camera in front of the door. I always checked the customer's activities at the end of the day. Of course, this was confidential. Tim and Iris seemed to be a sweet couple. Tim hugged Iris all the time, as though he were afraid she would run away.
Wow, the suitcase looks so big.
I said. The previous guests, even if they rented the house for a week, did not bring a huge suitcase.
Maybe they are careful and always carry the necessary things with them.
That night, I was woken up by a constant ringing of the phone. But when I picked up the phone, there was no response other than a gasp. And then total silence.
Who is that? Hello?
I kept asking but got no answer, so I hung up. But then the phone kept ringing. Once again, I picked it up to find no response from the other end of the line. It made me angry.
You bastard! Call me again and I'll kill you.
Then no more calls in the night, so I could eventually lay down and quickly fall asleep. I hadn't seen Iris out for 2 days.
Maybe she's sick.
The next morning, Tim called to inform me that he would check out before the schedule due to personal reasons. I was quite surprised to see that Tim paid the full rent for 4 days and 3 nights. Before leaving, Tim sent a message to thank me and gave me a 5-star.
What a gentle guest he was.
I thought. Until 3 p.m., I decided to clean the apartment to prepare for the next guest. When I opened the door, a strong odor hit my nose.
What's that awful smell?
I frowned slightly. It was a bit surprising to me because this guy wasn't as neat as he seemed. The inside of the apartment looked normal. The tables and chairs were scattered, but not as dirty as I thought. But the smell was still strong.
It can't be like that.
I hurried forward and cleaned the bathroom first. That smell was even stronger.
Unbelievable!
I shook my head, feeling absolutely disappointed. On the floor, behind the tub, something yellow came out.
The stench is definitely coming from there.
I approached. As soon as I saw the thing behind the tub, the smell made me nauseous immediately. Oh my God, it was so horrible. The thing inside that plastic wrap gave off a disgusting smell. I couldn't do anything but keep myself away from that bag.
Hi.
A voice from behind startled me. That was Tim.
I forgot some stuff. If you don't mind, I will go now.
I nodded fearfully while my heart was still beating fast. Tim passed over me to pick up the plastic bag without noticing its horrible smell, then quickly left.
Send my hello to Iris. I wonder where she's been lately.
Tim looked at me and smiled cryptically, then nodded. After cleaning the bathroom, I moved on to the living room. I turned on the TV while cleaning around so that the work went smoother.
Breaking news. At 7 p.m. last night, police reported a barbaric murder in Smithfield in the dumpster of an apartment complex. The victim is a girl named Siri, 23 years old. The body was dismembered and locked in a suitcase. The head hasn't yet been found. The suspect was described as a 25-year-old man who was seen to be with the girl. If you have any information, please contact.
The doorbell rang, so I got to the door and peered cautiously into the peephole. It was Tim again, but he was even more monstrous than before.
I think I dropped my wallet somewhere. Would you mind if I got in to find it?
Tim said.
It's okay. No worries. Anyway, did you hear the news about a murder?
At the very moment when I hit the doorknob, something in my mind popped up. The victim's name was Siri, and Siri was the reverse of Iris.
When two guys who own the Luxury Dark channel posted a video about the dark web dating site, my group set up a challenge. Okay, since we're all single, the challenge will be to find a girlfriend on the dark web. Then, challenge accepted messages pop up. As someone who is used to the dark web, I certainly can't lose this challenge. That night, after I accessed the dating site on the dark web, I clicked to see a list of girls who are available. If you've watched the video of Luxury Dark, you can probably guess what kind of weirdos they are. Some people have severely burned bodies, some have wrinkled skin, weirdly messy hair, or even distorted parts. Among them, the blinking black-haired girl named Mia. She has a hobby of collecting dead insects, just like me. After a few days of texting back and forth, Mia asked for my home address, and I gave it to her. That very night, she came to my house. Mia wore a white ankle-length dress. She looked exactly like her avatar, with pitch black hair. What's strange was that she didn't wear anything on her feet.
Did you walk barefoot here?
Well, I took an Uber.
Mia replied nonchalantly, and just like that, I let her get in the house. That challenge I officially won. But there is one thing my friends didn't know. I fell in love with Mia. It didn't take long for Mia and I to officially live together. Living in the same house with Mia is wonderful. Everything was great in the beginning. We get along really well, and we've never had more than a brief argument. But then she started humming. It's so dumb, I know, but she's always whistling this weird song. like the kind of tune you'd hear in a horror movie. At first, I would just hear her humming it when she was showering. Even though I tried to ignore it, I couldn't. It got stuck in my head and it drove me a little crazy. Just like the time when Adele's Easy on Me first came out. You know the type. After a week or so, I asked her what the song was, and she just laughed. I'm wondering if maybe she came up with it on her own, especially when she started doing it more. One night while I was sleeping, I was woken up by that humming sound like a loudspeaker pounding right next to my ear. I thought I was dreaming, but no, I was wrong. I opened my eyes to see she was lying on her side, staring at me and humming that terrifying, scary song again.
Jesus Christ, you scared me to death!
In response, Mia remained silent, and suddenly she smiled. God, that smile didn't just stop at that grin, but it stretched and stretched until her lips reached her ears.
What the hell?
I shivered but couldn't move. Just like that, Mia, with her bloody mouth, bared her sharp teeth and came close to me. Just when I thought she was about to chew my head off, Mia stopped, returned to her senses, and went back to sleep like nothing happened. That night, I lay motionless in that position until morning, unable to close my eyes, and just kept my eyes on the ceiling. The next day, I came home late from work exhausted, partly because I couldn't sleep the night before. Mia was in the kitchen preparing food, and she just kept humming.
Crazy bitch!
I felt like I was blowing things out of proportion, but honestly, how hard is it to just not humming all the time? I told her to stop, but she just huffed and kept cooking.
What do you mean?
She said. It seemed that she wanted to start the fight. I lost my mind. I slapped Mia hard. Just then, she got freaked out. She told me she wasn't doing it and didn't know what my problem was. She called me crazy just because I was getting a little upset. And somehow that was all I could take. I grabbed one of the cast iron pans from the stove and swung it at her head as hard as I could. Mia fell over and smashed her head on the counter, falling to the ground. I think I hit her maybe 3 or 4 times. I don't remember, but I feel horrible. I couldn't believe I'd lost my temper like that, and I have no idea how I can fix this, regardless of how much she might have been provoking me. So if you ask me, never find the lovers on the dark web. But you know what the weird thing is? She's still freaking humming. 2 days have passed. Mia was still lying on the kitchen floor. The blood had dried. Her eyes were rolling back and her jaw was shattered into 100 pieces. But she didn't stop. I just need her to shut up. Just shut up. Shut up.
And she didn't have a raincoat either. If the rain hadn't stopped, maybe she would have to stay overnight at the store. But she didn't like that at all, because there was a rumor that this store was haunted.
Don't clean the dining room table at 12 o'clock because you might see them.
Baron, a day shift employee, warned Jade so.
Them?
The kids, Jade. Don't you know?
Baron shook his head. 10 years ago, there was a serial murder here, but the killer was never identified. The victims were 5 children. They were dismembered and stuffed in 5 mascots. From then on, their ghosts haunted this restaurant. When the clock pointed to 12, they would appear, started singing, dancing, even breaking furniture.
The corpse stuffed into Charles' mascot is the most mischievous and evil,
Baron suddenly emphasized, which gave Jade a sudden goosebump. However, she signed in the contract for the night shift work, so she couldn't break it.
As long as I don't get there at 12 o'clock, I'll be fine.
But things were out of her expectation. Now it was raining heavily and she was stuck at the restaurant. The worst thing was the weak electrical system here, which made it even more gloomy. She tried to get the story Baron had told that morning out of her mind. The silence inside gave her a minor goosebump. Taking a deep breath, Jade took the mop to the dining table. The strange noise from the stage startled Jade, but when she turned around, there was nothing but 5 animatronics standing motionless on stage. Jade continued to pile chairs on the table. The hum that echoed through the air made Jade shiver. It was the song Out of This World that the animatronics band always performed. Jade looked at the animatronics on stage and assumed they were faulty, so she decided to check them. Jade slowly moved towards Charles the mouse. It stood there motionless with a smile while the humming still resounded.
Ground control to all my friends.
Charles suddenly bellowed out a loud, raspy sound like it was faulty. Its whole body began to convulse with the arms flailing wildly. Its mouth moved, and its eyes blinked rapidly, and the verse it was singing kept repeating over and over, growing louder and louder. Jade had to cover her ears because of the strange squealing. She panicked and staggered out of the dining table. Jade sat at the counter. She was panting, and her limbs were still shaking from the unexpected encounter. The restaurant was really haunted. She took out her phone and texted her manager to ask for a shift change. But it was almost midnight. He was probably sleeping. On the outside, it was still pouring down, but Jade decided to leave. She quickly put all her things in the backpack. Jade sped up. The more panicked she got, the more quickly she did. She no longer had the courage to go check the electrical system, just using the flashlight on her cell phone to shine the way. After getting out of the counter, she found large footprints on the floor. Its color resembles blood. Those footprints extend from the dining table to the cashier counter. Jade was so scared that her legs were shaking, and she stepped back. Her back just hit something. She slowly rolled her eyes up. Mouse Charles's head gradually appeared from the darkness. It was smiling, and from there, a few drops of liquid splashed on Jade's face. She raised her hands to touch the liquid. Oh my God, that was blood! Jade screamed in fear. She tried to run out of the damn restaurant as fast as she could. The truck was approaching when Jade rushed across the road. The driver couldn't brake in time and crashed into her. Jade was lying under the front of the car, her head and face all crushed, her bones and joints broken. Blood gushed out from her mouth, mixing with the torrential rain. The driver called an ambulance while Jade was dying in pain. Inside the dark corner of the store, Baron and Mascot Charles is dazed, his limbs shaking with fear. He just wanted to have a little prank.
It's been so long since I felt this good. Gonna blast out from my neighborhood.
A few years ago, I was in a bad place. My guardian had kicked me out after graduation. I was so worried since I couldn't afford a place to stay at the time. A friend noticed and offered a place for me, since he has an empty room at home. I agreed. Looking back now, I wish I had just stayed in the street. He is a lovable guy, so his friends come to hang out often. Over time, they started to stay with us for longer periods of time, sometimes weeks. His friends were another group of brothers named Joe and Will. The big brother, Joe, is such a nice guy, while the younger one, Will, had a list of mental problems. He believed in the occult and anything of that sort. He would often look me in the eyes and tell me he could see how I would die. Once he even told me that I was possessed by a demon and I needed my soul cleansed. I never really believed in that stuff. Obviously, I was always looking over my shoulder and locking the door of my room. However, I forgot once. It was the day I had my night shift. I was so exhausted that I went to bed right after I got home. About 2 hours later, I suddenly felt something wet on my face. I tried to ignore it and convinced myself it was just a dream. After a while, I felt the wind blowing strongly against my face from nowhere. Feeling itchy, I opened my eyes to check time. The view made me tremble inside. It was Will. He was putting his face very close to mine, his face going wild and crazy. Turns out what I thought was a dream earlier was his drool and breath. I jumped up and pushed him hard. "What the hell is wrong with you?" His body shook like crazy. He couldn't stop muttering, "Demon, demon, demon." The next morning, I told everyone about that. They all knew he had these problems, but he was their friend. They helped him through the hard times and gave him a place to stay. Otherwise, he would be on the streets. I was always on guard around him after the things did to me. No one else seemed to be as concerned as I was. They should have been. One day I was sleeping and my phone rang. It was my boss. He asked if I could come into work an hour early. It was only 12 p.m. I was broke and needed to save money to get out of this house as soon as possible, so I said yes. I walked out into the living room to see my friend Joe sitting on the couch, while Will sat on the floor by the TV. I said goodbye and left for work. It was 5 p.m. when my shift at work was almost complete. When I was about to leave, a policeman approached me. "Hi, this is the police. Something happened at your apartment today and we need your support." I had assumed one of the brothers had been arrested for something illegal, but I was very wrong. The officer then informed me that Will had stabbed and killed his brother and my friend at around 1 p.m. I was shocked. I had just left the house an hour before it happened, and everything seemed fine. Our apartment was a crime scene, so I went to another friend's house to watch the news reports since the police wouldn't give me any information on the case. Over the next couple of days, the information began to be released. Will hadn't just stabbed Joe once, not twice, but over and over, and nearly decapitated the bodies. And my poor friend, he tried so hard to escape from that manic, but unluckily, he was bleeding to death. Will was caught hiding in the bushes near where I worked. I watched the news report in horror. We had known he was unstable, but this? He hadn't confessed anything, but the police found his notebooks. He thought we were possessed by demons, and this was the only way to free us. And my name, it is put in the last, except
easily became overloaded with the work here. It was probably due to the high pressure at the workplace that people barely talked. After a while, I only knew and talked with two more colleagues, Emmy and Joe. Emmy was my supervisor, and Joe was Emmy's manager.
Jesus. Try to finish this mess. I couldn't contact Joe for a few days. Maybe he died somewhere.
Emmy angrily threw the documents on my table and left. It was already 8 o'clock. She must have been exhausted from taking over all the work since Joe didn't show up. Luckily, our boss was so understanding and kind. Every day around 10 p.m., he usually gave us some brain-boosting water. To me, it was like an elixir. I always felt so awake and refreshed every time I drank it. Since then, it had become my new beverage. Despite one side effect, I often lost sleep in the next few days. That day, as usual, I stayed at the company quite late with a bunch of documents. I went outside for a cigarette. While standing next to the exit door, I suddenly heard some strange echoing noises from downstairs. I worked on the 20th floor of the building, and there was barely anyone who came here at this hour. But that sound still stirred up the air. It sounded like someone jumping up and down the stairs. Then came the giggles, so monstrous in the still air.
So strange. What's wrong with the janitor?
I returned to my desk. Emmy had been off for 3 days already for unknown reasons. It also meant all of her work now fell on me. It was 9 p.m. I breathed a sigh of relief after the work was done. I packed up my things to go home. I hated the elevator here. It never reached our floor since the 20th floor button was broken. So I had to walk downstairs to use the elevator. Suddenly, I heard the same strange noise again. The clattering footsteps on the stairs and the giggles. But it was louder this time, and coming from upstairs, I called out, "Who is it?" The noise stopped for a few seconds, but then it got faster and louder. I saw a figure appear on the dark stairs. It looked like a woman with loose hair covering most of her face. I approached her and asked,
Hello? What's the matter?
As soon as I finished the sentence, the woman slowly raised her head, revealing a wild face. Her eyes were bloodshot, like she hadn't slept in a week. Oh my God! That was Emmy! She was tightly holding a large stapler in her hand, which was covered in a red liquid that smelled like blood. While I was still frozen with fear, she burst out laughing like crazy and rushed toward me. I thought she would jump on me, but no, she kept jumping on the stairs, then burst out laughing again. I was so scared and quickly ran away. After getting in the car, my heart was still pounding wildly in my chest. I saw a crowd gathering in front of the building, but I was too panicked to care. That whole night I couldn't sleep. Even until my alarm went off at 7 a.m., I still couldn't close my eyes for a while.
If everything keeps going like this, I might go crazy one day.
But I loved this job and wanted to follow it to the end. Emmy still didn't go to work today. Maybe she just gave up like Joe. Little Caesars was my favorite pizzeria. Not only did they have the best pizzas, but it was also Sasha's workplace. To me, she was the greatest chef, and she made the best pizzas in the world. That day, I went to Little Caesars as usual. After ordering, I sat in my favorite seat. From this view, I could see Sasha step out sometimes. She looked so beautiful in Little Caesar's uniform with an apron. When the waiter brought the pizza out, I imagined it was Sasha. She was getting closer and now serving me the food.
Do you need anything else?
The waitress's voice woke me up. I shook my head and stared at the meal. While swallowing each bite with pleasure, I thought about the presents I gave her, wondering if she liked them or not. I sat at Little Caesars for a few hours, and before leaving, I left a note for Sasha. I wanted to wait outside until her shift ended. I stayed across the street and looked at the pictures of her. Whatever she did, she was so adorable. Even when she was sleeping, eating, walking, or making pizzas, she looked so gorgeous. Oh, there she was. For your information, I had a small gift for her and was dying to see her reaction. After a few steps, Sasha turned her head back. I hid behind the wall, trying not to let her find me. Then Sasha suddenly walked faster, so I had to speed up to keep up with her. Sasha? I suddenly appeared, touching her back. She screamed and ran away. I thought maybe she ran into some trouble, so I chased after her. I kept running and running, but ended up losing track of her. The next day, I went back to Little Caesars, sat in my favorite seat, and ordered my favorite pizza.
Sasha was nowhere to be seen, but I assumed she was in the kitchen. You're eating too much.
Disgusting! Are you starving?
I heard the other guests whispering something, but I didn't care much. Sasha made those pizzas for me, just me. So of course I would eat all of them. But the taste today was weird and not as good as usual. Especially because I could feel something inside my mouth that no matter how hard I chewed, it wouldn't go away. I tried to swallow it, but it stuck in my throat. Something in the food made me throw up. I heard a woman scream.
What the heck? That's disgusting.
A few more people knocked over their chairs. It seemed that they were very angry. I pulled the thing out of my throat. It was a bunch of hair. I was so scared and confused, I didn't know what to do. Ugh, that jerk just threw up. So disgusting! A guest spoke up as the staff approached. Everything was so chaotic that I couldn't do anything but rush away. After the incident, I didn't have any courage to go into that place again, but waited for Sasha from the other side of the road. She finally finished her shift. I quietly followed her without making any noise.
I just put a little hair in the pizza and it worked.
Sasha was laughing with someone on the phone.
He probably wouldn't dare to come anymore. What a freak.
I heard all these words and it broke my heart into pieces. How could she do this to me? I didn't believe this. I had to ask her. Sasha, why? Sasha! I immediately rushed towards her.
Ew! Ah! Pervert!
Sasha screamed when I touched her shoulder.
Stay away from me! Leave me alone! Ah!
She screamed too loudly, so I covered her mouth, but she resisted and thrashed violently. Shh! Behave! Behave, my little angel. I pushed my hand tighter and whispered into her ears. But she wouldn't stop panicking. Nothing to be scared of, Sasha. I had to hug her and comfort her. Behave. Sasha was no longer struggling. She behaved now. I hugged her in my arms. Gosh, her hair smelled so good. Her body had the smell of my favorite pizza. I couldn't stop inhaling the scent of her hair and skin. From now on, Sasha would always be by my side and enjoy Little Caesar's pizza with me. No more heartbreak, no more fear. Just you and me.
A few years ago, I was traveling alone in a little-known place in Texas. I had planned to stay there for 1 week. However, the blizzard brought traffic to a halt, so I ended up being there for almost a month. As a fitness lover, the first place I went to check was the gym. The town was sparse, so it's surprising that there were always only a few people at the gym. I especially loved going to the gym late at night. There was hardly anyone there, so the whole gym seemed to be mine. It was the only gym I could find in that area, so I had to go there even though I found it a bit inconvenient. For example, the manager was always silent. The gym facility was old and gave off an unpleasant atmosphere. It felt like everything was covered with the smell of sweat and no one ever cleaned it up. However, the boxing bags here are of extremely good quality. They were soft, and the level of elasticity was insane. One quiet night, and the gym was empty. I put on my headphones and ran on the treadmill. At some point, I saw a black shadow reflected in the mirror. Every time I turned around, but I saw no one. I thought it was on my head, or else it might be the manager. I kept running for another 15 minutes, But those black figures didn't leave me alone. It felt like I was watched by dozens of eyes. Although I sweated like crazy, my body felt cold. Since I'm a wimp, I've decided to switch the gym time from evening to daytime for the rest of my stay here. On the last day before I left, I went to the gym for the last time. From afar, I noticed crowds of people. The entrance was blocked by a lot of police cars and ambulances. Curious, I asked a policeman standing nearby. He told me not to stay away because it was a crime scene. When I heard this, I was shocked because yesterday when I came to work out, everything was normal. Of course, I inquired further, but received no further information. At that moment, I saw the police escorting the gym manager out. He remained silent, exuding of terrifying and creepy mystery. After that, all the punching bags that I love to use were carried out one by the staff wearing protective gear. All were cut open. What the hell is going on? I raised my legs and peered inside. If I could go back to that moment, I'd want to slap myself in the face for being nosy. I wish I had never seen that. Inside the sandbags was the human body with flesh and blood rotting. Witnessing that terrible scene, I couldn't help but throw up. As soon as I regained my consciousness, I went back to the motel, packed my things, and left that damn place. Later on, I learned the truth through watching the news. Before I came to that city, many people suddenly disappeared for no apparent reason. The owner of the motel was afraid of losing guests, so he absolutely did not say a word to me. My heart turns uneasy every time I think about it. Perhaps that sandbag was so qualified not because it was expensive, but because the sand was replaced by human bodies. And perhaps the strong smell that made me queasy was not sweat, but a smell of fluid from rotten humans.
Hi, my name is Noah, and I'm 10 years old. At this age, I'm supposed to hang out and party all day. Yet, my parents are a bit overprotective. They still hire a babysitter to watch me 24/7. Her name is Evelyn. This week, my parents are on vacation, so it's just me and Evelyn at home. Since my parents are not home, I have the whole house for myself. I've been laying down on this couch playing PS4 for what seems like hours. What? It's already 9 o'clock? It's strange. I don't even see Evelyn around. I still haven't had dinner yet. My stomach grumbles. Playing the game is more exhausting than I thought.
Evelyn?
I called out, but no one answered. Did she go out without me knowing? I guess I'll just have to make my own sandwich. As soon as I set foot on the ground, the electricity in the living room goes out.
Great timing.
I mumbled to myself. In the area where I live, power surges during this season are not uncommon. I guess that's the cause, which means I'll have to go downstairs to the kitchen to turn the power back on from the power box. The room was pitch black. I used the walls to guide me. I reach out my hand, reach out the kitchen. It's strange when I notice how quiet the house is. I don't hear the babysitter's radio or even my dog barking. All I can hear is the sound of my feet against the floor.
Evelyn, are you here?
I called out to Evelyn, just wanting something to break the silence. No response. She must have sneaked out to hang out with her boyfriend. As I got closer to the kitchen area, I noticed a strange scent that smells like raw meat. But it's natural for a kitchen to smell like meat. I tried to reason to myself, letting out a nervous chuckle.
Here it is.
I flick the switch. The lights blaze on, and I'm blinded for half a second. My eyes quickly adjust to the brightness, and I stop in horror at the sight that beholds me. God!
What the hell is this?
Lying on the floor behind the kitchen island is Evelyn. She was lying on her stomach, but her neck turned completely to the left at a 90-degree angle. Her eyes looked straight into my face. Red tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. She lay in a pool of blood. Around was a circle drawn in red ink. I trembled and drowned in fear. Suddenly, I heard footsteps approaching me. It's pretty close. Although I'm not even sure whether Evelyn is still alive or dead, the first thing the 10-year-old boy does is run to his bedroom and lock the door. I covered the blanket and lay there shivering. A second, 2 seconds, and a minute passed. Nothing happened. I called my mother, and after that, I was so tired that I fell asleep without realizing it. The sound of footsteps grew louder, louder. Someone opened the bedroom door. I woke up. Turns out it's just a nightmare. I heard the car engine outside the window, then the door opening. Mom is back with the police. In the end, all they found was a plugged-in PS4. The kitchen, the floor were empty. There was no sign of Evelyn or the circular bloodstains I described. I felt guilty, yet relieved. Maybe I was playing games for so long that I imagined that all. I apologized to my parents and went to my bedroom. As soon as the light came on, I was once again frozen. From the door, there's a set of bloody footprints that circle my bed, and then disappear under it.
Vanessa took a deep breath. The last time she was in this class, the students, including one named Nick, pranked her with snakes and scorpions to expel her from the class. Even so, the principal didn't agree to change class for her, for the reason that the homeroom teacher hadn't returned to work. The kids started to gossip right after she stepped in, like they weren't expecting that this substitute teacher would return. Vanessa put her bag on the table, tried to act like it was nothing, and started her lecture. The kids seemed to be scared after getting a warning from the principal. They didn't chit-chat in the class or make fun of Vanessa anymore. During her lecture, Vanessa didn't notice the staring eyes and mischievous smile from the kid named Nick. Nick's evil smile showed up when he saw the stone hit the window. The sound from the window got Vanessa's attention. She went to open the window and look down, but she saw no one. At that moment, Nick suddenly appeared right behind her.
Miss Van?
Said Nick. Vanessa looked at Nick warily, with her back facing the window.
I'm really sorry for the prank. I didn't mean to scare you at all. Here's a gift for you.
Nick handed the beautifully wrapped bow tie gift, smiling sincerely. Vanessa was very surprised. She hesitated. This naughty boy really meant it. So she took the gift.
Open it up,
Nick urged. Vanessa didn't want to disappoint her student, so she unwrapped the gift. A black snake came out, terrifying Vanessa to death. She stepped back, unsteadily reaching out for Nick. He almost gave his hand to her, but then it pulled back. And so Vanessa fell out the window. The loud sound startled everyone who heard it. The whole class was shocked and rushed out to the window. Vanessa lay on the cement floor. Red blood quickly spread to an area. Her mouth moved and her body twitched slightly. Before passing out, she saw Nick by the window still looking at her and said,
Gotcha.
Vanessa was taken to the hospital. In front of the school board, Nick insisted that Vanessa fell on her own. Besides, no proof of Nick pushing the substitute teacher was found, so he easily got away with his prank. Even so, he deserved an adequate punishment for it. A month later, Vanessa hadn't returned, and all the students believed that she was so scared that she gave up her job. At this time, the class had been over, and Nick had to stay to do the cleanup. He carried a bucket and a mop in one hand, whistling a melody. The sound echoed in the hallway, causing Nick to stop whistling. He looked around but saw nothing but an empty hallway. The light suddenly flickered. Nick's eyes were wide open, for he saw something at the end of the hallway. It was a person with a high heel on one foot, bare foot on the other, wearing blood-stained white clothes. The person's head was down with loose and long hair. That person had the same outfit as Vanessa. The light turned off and on again. That person disappeared. Nick rubbed his eyes frantically, but still, he only saw an empty hallway.
It's impossible. She's still in the hospital.
Nick confronted himself as he kept walking. Laughter echoed through the air, startling Nick. He immediately turned around. At the end of the hallway, there was Vanessa's ghost. This time, Nick could see her face clearly, blood pouring from her eyes and mouth, falling onto her skirt, staining her white shirt. Nick got panicked. Vanessa had come back for his life. Nick quickly ran out of the hallway. He was truly scared. The footsteps still echoing panicked Nick even more. He ran down the stairs but bumped into the ghost and tripped several times in fear. Nick ran up the stairs to the exit, gasping for breath. When he raised his head, Vanessa's bloody face appeared in front of his face.
Boo!
No! No! Oh! Nick screamed. He jerked backward and then slipped. He fell upside down the stairs. His arms and legs are bent terribly, blood pouring from his nose and mouth. With excruciating pain, blood quickly splattered on the floor. The person was approaching Nick. He couldn't move his arms or any other part and could only stare blankly at Vanessa approaching. Vanessa wiping the blood from her mouth, coldly looking at Nick lying on the floor.
Gotcha,
she said. Then she stepped over Nick's body, leaving him lying in his own blood.
To your manager
was her catchphrase in most situations. That day, she seemed indisposed, perhaps because of the gloomy weather. McDonald's was bustling with people, including her. She stood in line with a scowl on her face. It took a long time for Ruby to place her order, and finally, she got it. The server today was Ivy. Ivy smiled politely and paused to take Ruby's order.
1 double cheeseburger.
Ruby focused on the menu on the table, not giving Ivy a glance. After ordering, Ruby stayed at the counter to wait for her food. Less than a minute had passed, and Ruby lost all patience. She kept looking at her watch, then back at the door. After a while, Ivy brought out the meal. Ruby flashed a forced smile and narrowed her eyes as she stared at her dish.
What the hell is this?
Ruby shouted angrily. She slammed the glass of water on the table and broke it. Small pieces of glass were strewn over the table. All the guests were startled. Ivy worriedly ran over.
What's wrong, madam? What's wrong? Look at this!
Ruby raised the bunch of human hair close to Ivy's face, growling.
There's hair in my burger!
Other customers started whispering.
Sorry, madam, but there seems to be a mistake here.
Ivy hastily explained.
What do you mean by mistake?
Ruby opened her eyes widely. Ivy explained that the food here was prepared and served in hygienic conditions. Plus, the staff working in the kitchen had short hair, so there was no chance a hair could get in.
You mean I made it up by myself? No, madam, I didn't. You rat! How dare you? Where's the manager? Let me talk to the manager!
Ruby immediately grabbed Ivy's shirt and yelled at her like she would eat Ivy alive, but that wasn't enough.
She pressed Ivy's head against the table full of sharp, broken glass. Ivy trembled to resist when her face was only inches away from it. She didn't expect that the first day of work would be so...
I want to speak to your manager!
Ruby continued to yell. At this moment, Danny, the store manager, appeared.
My apology for our new employee. She might be a bit short of experience. How can I help you?
Are you the manager?
Ruby looked scornfully at the thin man in front of her.
She slandered me. You gotta do something. Do something!
She finally loosened her hands on Ivy. Ivy was too scared to move, so she fell to the ground. Danny, with a polite smile, offered Ruby compensation. Not only another burger meal, but a takeaway combo of double cheeseburgers. But Ruby wasn't satisfied. She wanted Ivy to apologize to her in front of everyone. And Ivy did, in a patient way. Ruby sat down arrogantly.
It looks like you're lucky today.
Ivy, you can go inside and prepare the meal, Danny said. After a while, Ivy brought out the food to Ruby. Ruby sneered and rudely snatched it. She sniffed the smell of food coming out of the bag and then quickly left the restaurant, just the way she did after cheating in other restaurants. Ivy stood there and watched the woman driving away, still shaking.
Hey, take it easy. We meet a lot of people like that.
A co-worker passed by and patted her on the shoulder. The mean Ruby was driving down the street, hitting the horn repeatedly. As her car pulled onto the freeway, she started eating the burger. She chewed hard as if she had been starving for a long time, not even bothering about the taste. One bite, then two, and three. She soon finished half of the burger. The pain came slowly. As soon as she realized something was wrong, she spat out the food. It turned out a lot of blood. Her eyes widened in shock as blood ran down her neck and clothes. At this moment, Ruby realized that there was a small piece of glass in her mouth. A stomach ache also started to hit her hard. She felt her throat burning and her stomach twisting with pain. Ruby quickly lost control. The car lurched and crashed into the roadside bar. It exploded shortly after. The incident was reported very soon.
That's Karen's car.
The co-worker in McDonald's panicked when she recognized the car and its owner, but then thought that it was fair.
She deserves it.
Ivy gave a forced smile, her eyes slowly moving to the trash.
In New York, it's difficult. I've searched all the forums and hunted down every street, but still couldn't find a decent place for less than $3,000. Just when I felt my luck was running out, I came across an advertisement that to me was a bargain. The building is located on the edge of the city and not many people pass by it. That apartment is on the ground floor with a bedroom, a kitchen, and a tiny living room. The only thing that I don't like about the apartment is the pile of weird furniture left by the previous owner. The curtains, lanterns, wall decorations, or even the sofa sets all look old and discolored. I once tried to sit on the leather chair, and to be honest, the feeling of it is so strange, cold and slippery. What's worse, they all smell like the disinfectant you could smell at the hospital.
Is the previous owner a creep or something?
When thinking about the workload and money I have to spend on redecorating the apartment. For the first few weeks, I simply put a mattress in the middle of the house to sleep since the moving process cost me a bundle. One day, I was so exhausted that I fell asleep immediately as soon as I laid down on my back. I don't know what time it was, but when I woke up, it was already dawn. My whole body was drenched in sweat. I was so weak that I couldn't feel my own breath. The nightmare was so real. I saw dozens, sometimes even countless dark figures with distorted, disgusting faces surrounding me. They clung to me. I was in a complete state of panic, yet I couldn't make a sound.
What the heck was that?
I thought it was all just a dream, but deep down, I know it's more than that. Whenever I lie down and am about to sleep, that dream comes back and haunts my night. The only way to get rid of it is keeping myself awake all the time. After 1 week, I felt like I had sleep paralysis. Sometimes, I see a disfigured woman in a white dress, always standing at the end of my bed. She kept squealing shrill screams and scratching herself. Sharp black fingernails continued to expose the flesh, and drops of blood dropped to the floor. The drops of blood are not the usual red color, but they are black and have a foul odor. Still, sweat broke out my body, but I couldn't move. Then, I noticed the woman pointing to the corner of the house, then repeated the action a few times before disappearing. What? There's nothing wrong with that house. The contract is clear. No rent refunds. After that, the owner hung up on the phone. So that's it. I can't get out of here soon. I decided to pour the rest of my money to eliminate the creepy vibe of this apartment. Room makeover is such a hard task. I had to move furniture all the way to the center, remove curtains, strip floors, and repaint walls, and so on. One evening, after peeling off the bedroom carpet, I discovered a broken piece of wood on the floor. So I carefully removed them, and I saw a small notebook with different names and dates. That looked so old and dirty. Curiosity got the best of me. I Google one of those names, and the results bring goosebumps to all over my body. A bunch of old news articles about a missing person popped up. The name and date of the disappearance of that person and all others perfectly match what's written in the notebook.
Oh my god, what is it?
I trembled with fear. Could it be the previous owner killed all of these people? I rushed out of that damn apartment and headed to the nearest police station I could find. The police then told me what I found might be the clue connecting the mysterious disappearances together. So they sent out the crime scene team. I was only allowed to stand outside the door when they investigated the house. Suddenly, I overheard one text saying,
"Yup, it's human." Human? What's human?
And here's what I got.
Sir, have you thrown any furniture in this apartment? We need to collect all of them.
When my brain processed the information, he continued, "The curtains, lanterns, and everything here are made of human skin.
All were probably peeled off from the missing..."
I could feel nothing but blind terror. Could it be all those dark figures with terrible shapes were the missing people the police said? Could it be that girl in the white dress scares me every night was one of them? No.
Had been always struggling with a list of mental illnesses, but of course I wouldn't blame her, after all she'd done for me. The first year after we got married, our life was like a dream. However, Haley changed when she found out she couldn't have children. She often had trouble sleeping and had to take medicine, yet her condition only got worse, and strange things constantly happened in our house after that. Once, after having the sweet night together, I cuddled Haley to sleep. I don't know how long it had passed. I was woken up by an uncomfortable feeling around my chest. When I opened my eyes, it was pitch black. That's when I realized my face was covered by the pillow, and the one who was pressing the pillow down my face was none other than Haley. It seemed like she wanted to take my life. As the oxygen level gradually ran out, my whole chest tightened and pain invaded my body. I didn't get why my wife was so strong then. I screamed and yanked until I was finally able to get out. "What the heck, Haley?" She kept her gaze in and wandered back to her bedroom. The scary thing is that after such incidents, Haley did not remember anything the next morning. When I told her to change doctors, Haley insisted it was all because the house was haunted. The demons in the house kept commanding her to harm me, and when she disobeyed, they would take over her body. We decided to move to the suburbs. Haley could no longer hear the voice in her head. She was happy and so was I. At the end of October, I had to work away from home for a week, although Haley was still taking her regular medication. I still wanted her to invite her friends to come over. However, my wife refused. Don't worry, the old Haley was dead. I had to give up and start my business trip. On the 5th day of my business trip, I called to find Haley much worse than usual. I tried to ask, but Haley said, "I'm just tired." The next day and the day after that, I called again, but Haley didn't answer. I called an early flight to make sure she's okay. I arrived in the living room at 11 o'clock at night. Haley was not in the living room. I called everywhere but got no answer. She must be asleep, I thought, as I headed for the stairs. Oh God, my poor wife. To my horror, I found my wife's body hanging from the banister. Under was a note saying, "I'm sorry, but the voice doesn't stop. I have to stop it myself before I hurt you again." I was about to help her down when I realized it was too late. Her neck had been hanging for so long that it stretched a few inches. You probably already know what happened after that. I called 911. It's been a year since Haley died. This might be the right time for my lover, Daniel, to move in. Fake fertility results, swapping sleeping pills, installing a remote control sound system in my home, and a good story that took a lot of work to come up with. All of it worked perfectly, and nobody even doubted. It's all worth it though, as now I can live a long life with the love of my life.
God, I hope this bus never stops.
It was Sunday night, but I still had to go to work. Forgot to mention, I work part-time at a Chuck E. Cheese. I know what you were thinking.
Working at Chuck E. Cheese is a dream job. Having fun with the kids is nothing to complain about.
Wow. Calm down. Hear me up and I'll prove you wrong. Mr. Brooks, the Chuck E. Cheese owner, is now my boss. Ever since I was a kid, I've always thought he was the most caring soul that spends his whole life working for children. Turns out, he's the most inhospitable one. Luckily, I'm just an apprentice, so I don't have to talk to him much. I often caught him standing in a corner, silently observing the whole thing. Not to mention, the work is always overloaded. There was always just me, Mr. Brooks' assistant, and Zane, the employee wearing a dirty old mascot suit.
What are you looking at? You're not paid standing there.
I did not have a moment's rest, but I was no doubt lucky enough to not be forced to wear the costume. For so long, I never even saw the man beneath the mascot. Zane has to talk to children and dance for them all day. What's worse, he was always under the supervision of Mr. Brooks. It's rare for children to laugh so happily these days. Maybe he comes up with something interesting. So I turned around to check it out.
What the hell?
Zane was on stage and staggered like he's drunk. He fell, then got up again, and then fell again. It goes on and on in the crunchy laughter of the children. The mascot shoes were so old and dirty. I froze when watching the thin red line stream down the face of the children's icon.
How could this be committed?
Since I fear the assistant can sense the lost productivity, I went about my business.
You're wearing a mascot today. Zane took an unscheduled break for no reason. And don't let Mr. Brooks know. He gets mad whenever Zane is absent.
When I was on the bus, I got a new message from the manager. What a tiring day, I sighed. following his instructions, I arrived at the store early and entered the changing room of the other coworker. The mascot is hanging right there. I took it down and put it on. Jesus, doesn't anyone wash this thing? I've never smelled something so rotten. The inside of the mascot was filthy and sticky. I'm sure it was sweat and all sorts of dirt coming from that coworker. Soon, the children arrived. I wasn't used to the job, so I just stood there bouncing around on stage and letting kids laugh at me. Thank God it's over. Hope Zane will show up tomorrow. Around 10 p.m., I turned back to the room to put the mascot off. But before I could do anything, a voice behind me made me startled.
Why don't you come and serve me during the break like you were told yesterday?
It's Mr. Brooks. Because I don't get it. I just stand there and hold my breath. I didn't even turn to face him for fear of being revealed. But the silence did not last long.
Tomorrow is your last chance. If you want to save your sister, you must obey me until the end.
What does that mean? When I digested his words, my fear spiked.
By the way, I didn't know you could still perform after all of your toes were chopped off.
And then, the laughter fades away when Mr. Brooks leaves the room. I then quickly stripped off the disgusting mascot and rushed to the bus stop to go home. That was the last time I showed up at Chuck E. Cheese. Mr. Brooks was in jail now, and Zane, the other employee, was nowhere to be found. To be honest, I really hope Zane and his sister are doing well.
Brittany, Valerie, and Allison were a group of close friends who went to play Escape Room Backroom version. In this version, players didn't have to discover clues or solve puzzles to find the exit, but they would experience the levels via VR glasses. Different levels had different frights that the girls had to face to find the way out. After taking 3 pills of cardiotonic from the game instructor, they put on the VR glasses. When Brittany opened her eyes, she found herself in a yellow hallway filled with an annoying musty smell and absolute quiet. Picking up her walkie-talkie, she gave it a try by calling her friends.
Hello? Val? Alice, do you hear me? Yes. All right, girls, let's rock.
Brittany walked on the deserted hallway. There was nothing but her footsteps. She had passed many turns, but hadn't found anything else along this empty hallway.
Where's the door?
I found a door. Pity girls. I'm winning this game.
Valerie said in the walkie-talkie. Brittany seemed a bit impatient because Allison soon also found the door to the next level while she was still in the same spot in the empty hall. Suddenly, she saw a monster ahead in one corner. Startled and scared, Brittany decided to turn into another cross, which was just an extension of the hallway so far, with boring yellow walls, the musty smell, and the mildew. The walkie-talkie had lost its signal for a while. Now, being totally lost in repeated space, Brittany started to get impatient and fatigued. Brittany was startled and looked around. Still that empty and humid hallway, but there were footsteps echoing, and they became louder and louder. Seemed like a creature was moving faster and faster. The only thing Brittany could do was run away from that thing. But the more she tried to run, the louder the footsteps became. Lonely and terrified, she became more panicked. Finally, she found a door in front. That must be the exit. No time to think, she rushed to it. And at the very moment when she twisted the doorknob, something touched her back. Brittany sat down for relief and then tried to call the others.
Alice! Val? Anyone hear me? Alice! Val!
That was Allison's voice.
Alice? Are you okay?
Allison sharply exhaled. It seemed that she was met with something terrified there.
Brie! Val is dead!
Allison bursted into tears. The news squeezed her heart. The walkie-talkie lost signal again.
Alice? Alice!
There was no reply, and Brittany, once again, was left alone. She needed to find Allison. The footsteps echoed in the hallway. Brittany immediately recalled the memory of the monster, so she kept running and running. The moment Brittany looked back, a black shadow ran into her and made her fall to the ground. The feeling of pain ran through her body.
Brie!
Luckily, that was Allison that bumped into her. The two girls were delighted.
Let's get out of here.
Finally, there was a door at the end of the hallway. But before they reached the door, a black shadow ran into Allison and made her fall down.
No!
Brittany screamed when she saw the sight. She couldn't feel her legs anymore, and she just kept shivering in fear. The man in black costume turned into Brittany. Having no time for tears, she rushed to the door. When she opened it, a bright, lighted space swallowed up her whole body. Brittany woke up, panicked, and looked around. There was still the room with the green screen, but the two chairs were empty.
Allison? Valerie?
They've gone already. The game instructor suddenly appeared from the middle of nowhere. Brittany checked her phone.
They didn't wait for me then.
On her way home, she was still scared of what happened. Then she was startled when she found the bloodline on her shoes. The memories of the hallway eventually...
Will? Will?
I called out his name in a panic, but there was only my own voice echoing back.
Mike?
Suddenly, a soft voice startled me. I immediately turned around, but nothing, only the dilapidated hallway. An intense search was conducted to find Will, but all efforts were in vain. They confirmed Will had died, based on the blood-stained clothes found at the abandoned Letchworth Hospital. But I held a belief that he was still alive. Will used to tell me about another dimension, and perhaps he was just lost in it. So I decided to go back to that hospital with Dustin and Lucas. We had to find our friend.
Don't go back there!
Lucas said.
Right!
Dustin agreed.
Will is there, cold and lonely. Don't you want to find him? Fine, I'll do it by myself,
I said and turned off the radio. Ever since Will was missing, they both behaved so strangely, like they didn't even care if Will was alive or dead. On the floor was a pile of rubble. On both sides of the wall were long streaks of blood and scribbled words. Despite being abandoned for a long time and being torn down, the traces of a mental hospital remain nearly unchanged.
Will?
I called out his name. Only the quiet, long, dark corridor replied to me.
Mike?
I was startled. It was him, I swear. Soft and weak it was, but it was him. Another strange noise gave me goosebumps. I immediately pointed my flashlight at the wreckage. Something was moving in there. The closer I approached, the louder that clanking sound. Hundreds of rats poured out from the rubble and ran over my feet, some biting my legs. But soon I realized that these rats weren't attacking me, but heading towards something else. It took me a while to keep calm after the rats had run away. I decided to turn towards where they headed in hope of finding Will. The squeaking sound still echoed in the dark hallway. I walked quietly until I saw a door with a hanging sign, "Danger, no trespassing." The sound of a rusty door opening made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. An unpleasant, musty smell filled my nose. I gulped and entered. The room behind the door was pitch black. I quickly scanned the flashlight around the room to find it very large. There was a minor growl. I squinted and looked around, and until I got used to the darkness, I could finally reshape things in the room. I wanted to move forward, but suddenly tripped and fell. My feet just stepped on some kind of slime that had a horrible stench. But that was not the worst. When I looked up, there was a giant demogorgon right in front of my eyes. It roared, opened its mouth full of sharp teeth, and blew into my face. I was too scared to run away. At that moment, Will's voice echoed again, which gave me a guide. I used all my strength to run away from the room. The monster chased after me, making shrill noises incessantly. It knocked me down. My whole body ached. I thought my ribs were about to break. The monster was right in front of my eyes. It was rushing toward me.
No! Mike! Mike! Mike!
I woke up gasping for breath. The monster was no longer there. Only Dustin and Lucas.
Ah!
I cried out in panic.
Calm down! Calm down! It's all right now.
Dustin patted my shoulder. I tried to control my breathing.
Will is still in there. Mike?
Lucas held my shoulder.
It's time to get over it. You have to remember.
I perplexedly looked at them.
What are you talking about?
Dustin looked at me.
Mike, Will is gone.
Dustin's words hit my ears as the lightning struck over my head. Liar! I didn't believe him. I turned to look at Lucas. Lucas pursed his lips and nodded slightly. My head suddenly throbbed like it was about to explode. I sank to my knees.
No!
I recalled that horrible memory. That night, the four of us went together to find evidence that Letchworth was a laboratory disguised as a mental hospital. Because of the old and weak structure, a big room collapsed during our adventure. Unfortunately, it was the room in
When I was a last-year medical student, I was sent to practice at a psychiatric hospital located pretty far from the city. On my first day at the hospital, I was quite creeped out. It's not like the hospital is haunted or anything, but I noticed the staff giving me an uninviting stare, and the patients looked like the kinds of people you would see in one of those exorcist movies. I remember two people that needed special care, one of them named May, the old woman that always acted like she was a kid. I heard that May had been an alcoholic for her whole life. She lost her child in a car accident, plus being abused by her husband made her health even worse. Every day, I had to play along with her game to entice May to take medicine. "Please play with me, Daddy." The other was a room away. He was a mutant about 7 feet tall. That creepy patient always gave me a disturbing staring, like he wanted to eat me alive. Once I gave him the medicine and reminded him to take it, but before I could finish my sentence, he lifted me up and squeezed me so tight that I could hardly breathe. Another staff member intervened in time and saved me. After that incident, I always watched behind my back just in case. That night, it's 2 a.m. When I was about to end my shift, my colleague hasn't come yet, but I was so tired that I decided to head home. As I was walking to the elevator, I was suddenly startled by a loud noise. I then turned back to see an empty hallway. That's all in my head, I thought to myself, and kept walking. But just as I stepped into the elevator and was about to close the door, I heard a giggling of some kids. "May, is that you?" No one answered. Curiosity got the best of me. I had to give it an investigation. The light of May's room was still off, but she was nowhere to see. While I was peering around to see if May had strayed into the wrong room, I noticed that the door to the tall man's room was not closed. Looking through the gap, I saw someone's feet lying on the floor behind the bed. Well, this is strange. Then, I gently opened the door to reveal the most disturbing scene ever. Lying there was May, surrounded by large pools of blood. The tall man, he was burying his face in her tiny belly, munching and growling. I was speechless at that moment. May didn't scream, but I could see tears welling in the corners of her eyes. And then she saw me, her hand still holding the heart shape that we had decorated since afternoon. Tried so hard to reach for me, but couldn't. "I'm sorry, my baby boy." Feeling nothing but blind terror, I rushed out of the room. I remembered calling the security and the police when shakingly stood in the elevator. Shortly after, when I was giving my statements, the police showed me the camera footage of that night. As I was lazily walking towards the elevator, the tall man's door opened, and when he stepped out, it seems that he wanted to follow me, but was held back by May, who also happened to come out at that moment. She was then dragged into his room. It has been a while, but I was still haunted. I received a phone call from my ex-colleague. While talking about the traumatic experience, he asked me, "By the way, did you watch him swallowing his pills?" An electric current passed through my body. I froze. The truth is, I was always afraid of getting in trouble with him, so I never did that. This story happened on Christmas a couple of years ago. At the time, many children were reported to be missing in my region. Here's the common. At the places where the police lost trace of those missing children, people found Polaroids of them, which had been taken on the day they went missing. While I was busy preparing dinner, Sean, my hyperactive 5-year-old son, kept whining. "Mommy, Mommy, can I have a cookie?" I really needed to focus on my work, so I tried to bribe Sean with a cookie and a tall glass of milk to make him sit still. "Mommy, I hear jingling of Santa's reindeer." Thank God, finally something to keep him busy. Probably just the old man next door, walking his corgi. But whatever, I'm going to rain on his parade. I returned to the kitchen. As a single mother, I should at least impress my parents with a hearty meal for tomorrow. At the very last, it can prove to them that I've still been fine. Just a few minutes later, my train of thought was interrupted again by my son's voice. "Mommy, Santa is here." I heard a loud jingle and footsteps. Listen, listen. I still can't take my eyes off the turkey, sighing and trying to ignore him. But in the end, I still had to give up, rinse the slime off my hands and step out of the kitchen. Okay, I'm coming. I listened. I froze, my heart began to pound. It wasn't the jingling of bells or a leash. It was the jingling of keys. Someone is trying to get the key to my door. See? I told you the truth. Before Sean could finish his sentence, I grabbed my son's arm and dragged him out of the living room. The sound stopped. But then there were footsteps. I hugged Sean tightly, squeezing him so hard that his face contorted with pain. I was startled and screamed. Sean then broke free from my arms and ran towards the chimney, and then, like a child overjoyed when he received Santa's gift, his face lit up. A small box wrapped in black paper had fallen in through the fireplace. It was too late. He picked it up, grinning. The smile on Sean's face quickly disappeared. Then he frowned. "It's not mine. It's for you, Mummy." I fraud her rinsing panic, hands shaking. I picked it up. On the outside of the box was my name, Maddie, written in red ink. I opened the lid. The note read, "You changed the locks." My heart pounding, I held the note in my hand, only to find underneath the paper was a brand new Polaroid photo. In the picture was Sean and I in the kitchen. It was Christmas Eve. I took my son, Tom, into the bedroom at around 10 o'clock. I gave him a cheek kiss. My little boy was lying in bed, resisting his sleepiness to tell me stories. "Mummy, I threw a big snowball in Mr. Ben's face this evening." Tom isn't a mischievous boy, but this was not the first time I heard some kinds of stories like this. Since today was a holiday, I didn't scold him, just asking, "Did he get mad at you?" I noticed the excitement in his eyes. "No, Mummy, he was just joking that he would come back for a resentment." What a relief. Mr. Ben was our friendly and decent neighbor. If it wasn't him, Tom probably got in big trouble. "Okay, close your eyes now if you want Santa Claus to come. I'll be back before you wake up. I promise." And I turned off the light and gently closed the door. It was just Tom and me the whole time, so I feel very guilty when I have to work on Christmas Eve. I forgot to mention I'm a nurse, and nights like Christmas would make me busier than ever. I locked the door and left the house at 11:15. Didn't forget to leave a glass of milk and some cookies on the table. As expected, I was so tied up that I didn't even have time to check my phone. It's already 7 a.m. Tom probably has been sleeping. I unlocked my phone to see a lot of missed calls. All are calls from home that were sent at 12 o'clock at night. Oh no! Knowing something was off, I rushed to my apartment. The door was only half closed. I was so sure I had locked it. There was snow on the doorknob and the floor. "Tom, are you awake?" He didn't answer. That's when I noticed the glass of milk was spilled on the table, pouring onto the carpet that Tom loved. I called his name, but still. When I got back, it was the dead silence. I glanced around. The apartment had stopped at the bedroom door. Oh my God! The door, it had a huge hole in the middle and was littered with traces of snow. Tom, not having enough time to think, I rushed into the room. It's like there had been a snowball fight everywhere. Fear and panic swelled within me. I rummaged through the closet under the bed to find nothing. There's still one place I didn't check. I brushed the snow off the bed, but still couldn't see my son. Under the snow there was a large pool of blood instead. Someone left a note. It read, "Tom is not a good boy. We always find wonder under the Christmas tree, don't we?" Trembling with anxiety and fear, I headed to the corner of the living room. The Christmas tree was flashing with lights. That's when I noticed bedside the gift boxes that my mother and I had prepared. There was also a box wrapped in red paper that I had not seen before. It was so big that a kid could fit. A kid like Tom. Tom. Never in my life had I experienced such horror. I stepped in the living room and shakingly opened the lid of the gift box. Inside was chest-deep snow and my baby boy. Tom couldn't move. Mouth was overstuffed with snow, and his eyes were red and watery.
There was a rumor. No matter what you do, or what your purpose is, never stay at a Chuck E. Cheese till the 5th night. Because if you do, you will go crazy or even die for no reason.
Nonsense! Stephen laughed at the story. He thought this rumor was stupid.
So, are you still gonna take the job?
The manager asked. Yeah, Stephen shrugged.
Remember, after checking the electrical system, you better go back to the security room. Don't stay outside for too long,
the manager said while handing the keys to Stephen before leaving. On the first day of work, Stephen tried to show himself as a responsible employee. The first duty was to check the electrical system. Chuck E. Cheese at night was so damn quiet. The dim light made it hard for Stephen to see things clearly, so he had to use the phone's flashlight.
Well, it's broken.
Stephen flicked on the broken light switch in the hallway. Then he decided to go to the electrical system room through the dining table area.
How did it get here?
Stephen was surprised to see the mascot of Charles standing in the corner of the room. He then pushed it to the backstage. After checking the electrical system, Stephen returned to the security room.
So boring.
He leaned on the chair, sipping hot coffee and looking at the security camera. Here came the very first nuisance.
What the hell?
Stephen noticed a guy in uniform sweeping the arcade.
Hey, it's late. Stop cleaning. You can do it tomorrow,
Stephen said over the microphone. But that man ignored his words.
Hey!
Stephen lost his patience.
Damn it!
He said angrily and decided to walk over to the arcade.
Did you hear what I said?
He mumbled. But when Stephen got there, the arcade was empty. There were only the game machines covered with dust in the corner.
Lucky for you.
Stephen went back to the monitoring room, thinking that the man had finished his job and left. This light work really bored Stephen. Even though he had finished a cup of coffee, he still couldn't resist the sleepiness. So Stephen closed his eyes and fell asleep quickly. The first 4 nights had passed peacefully. And soon came the 5th night. Stephen continued his boring job, walking around the store, checking the electrical system and locking all of the doors. Then he returned to the security room and turned on the cameras one by one. Each area appeared in sequence on the screen. The cleaning staff in the arcade, restroom, play area, all silent at night.
You don't need to walk around. Just stay in the security room tonight.
Stephen suddenly was reminded of the manager's words. But he had been on duty for 4 nights in a row and didn't see anything dangerous, Stephen thought while clicking to view the camera.
Ah! Oh, shoot!
Stephen was startled when he saw Charles's face covering the entire screen.
Who the hell did this?
Stephen angrily went to check the dressing room. But when he got there, there was no one in the dressing room. All animatronics were gone.
What the hell?
Stephen returned to the stage to check, but there was nothing either.
Hi, player! Are you ready for the fun night?
Stephen, startled, looked around.
Hey, this isn't funny at all,
he shouted.
It's time for the hunt night!
The room turned red with the deafening alarm bells ringing. Stephen covered his ears. The sound hurt his head so badly. He quickly ran towards the door but was stopped by Charles the mouse, which held a bloody axe in its hand. Stephen panicked and ran off to the other side. The dark corridor was lit by the dim flashlights. Stephen ran in panic. The heavy footsteps with the evil laughter of Charles and the other mascots were right behind him. Ellen the chicken threw the axe but missed him. He kept running away. Stephen was now hiding in the dressing room among the dusty and furry mascots. He tried to breathe softly so those horrible things wouldn't find him. Heavy footsteps resounded in the air along with eerie laughter. Those creatures were very close, and they were hunting Stephen. The animatronic's attention was drawn to the wardrobe, so they slowly approached. There was no one inside. Stephen managed to escape the dressing room before the robots found him. He panicked and ran towards the exit, but it was locked. Damn it! Stephen ran to the security room again, but no matter how hard he tried, the door wouldn't open.
No, please God, no!
Stephen muttered desperately. Stephen kept running away, but this time the robots blocked all the aisles. They came closer and closer. While panicked Stephen slowly stepped back, he suddenly hit something. That was Charles the mouse.
No!
The hunting night ended and a new day came. The mascots returned to the backstage, closing their eyes again as if nothing had happened.
It can get tiring to watch him go about his shenanigans in the pursuit of viral fame. Asking me to pick up things for him while he was traveling. To be honest, I was quite relieved since I didn't want to receive any more cheap view pranks from him. One evening I got home to find a big box waiting on his front porch. It was wrapped and glued very well along with the note, "Open the box right after you receive it." Damn it, I'm sure this is some kind of prank set up for me. I decided to drag the box over to my house to store it in the garage. I admit, I had trouble lifting the box on my own. It was really freaking heavy. I hadn't been to the garage for a long time, so I struggled for a while to pull it up. As I was trying my best to lift the box, I tripped over a ledge in the door. I lost my grip on the package and fell to the ground and heard a light crack inside. God, I hope I haven't broken anything important. That's okay. I can blame the carrier. That's what I thought. I dragged the box the rest of the way, setting it in the corner for days. Until a few days passed, there was a strong stench rose coming from the box from the garage that I couldn't ignore. He ordered raw meat to gradually roast the mukbang or something. I covered my nose as I approached the box with a pair of scissors in my hands. I probably wouldn't even have needed them to open it, as it had become soggy enough at the bottom to poke through with a finger. I also prepared dozens of plastic bags to handle the pile of meat. But in the end, it turned out that I didn't need all of that. There was meat inside, not beef or pork, but human flesh. No, it's worse than that. That's my neighbor lying in there. Then his flesh began to rot and decompose. I rushed out of the garage, unable to hold back the nausea that gushes out of my rectum. My body softened with fear. I still managed to call the police. It was kind of hard not to suspect the man with the corpse in its garage. After all, thankfully they soon realized I wasn't involved. There was one piece of irrefutable evidence in my neighbor's own hands that proved my innocence: a vlogging camera. They showed me the footage only once. Turns out my neighbor took on the challenge to resend himself from the shipping facility to his home. The last video on camera read, "Hey, what's up guys? I think I'm in a truck right now. I can feel it moving." On the last entry, the box toppled over. He broke his neck, and that was it. The camera continued to record until the power went out. There's one thing that I didn't tell the police. Just right before the tumble that leads to his death, I heard the familiar screeching sound. It's the sound of my garage door, slowly being pulled up.
Dan has been a big fan of Chuck E. Cheese ever since he was a child. He often watched horror stories on YouTube about Chuck E. Cheese chain stores. Sometimes those stories were told to be based on a true story. And of course, he was always curious to find out if those stories were true.
It's nice to be here late at night. When the machines are down and families are gone, you can get a Chuck E. Cheese token.
Dan stood in front of Chuck E. Cheese restaurant, looking at his phone with anticipation. He looked around carefully while forming in his head a plan to sneak in there at 3 a.m. In the YouTube video he was watching, there was a reference to the Chuck E. Cheese token. The video owner claimed that he found it in the management room thanks to an animatronic. So the plan was set. He must find an animatronic. After a while, Dan got to a dark hallway. He suddenly felt like someone was watching from behind. Turning around, Dan was startled to see the Chuck E. Cheese mascot standing there. It looked old and very strange with its round, fat body and dirty fur. Thinking it was the restaurant's staff, Dan cautiously took a step back. The mascot also stepped toward him without saying a word.
So weird,
Dan thought as he squinted at the moving creature. His heart was beating fast, and his mind was trying to come up with as many excuses as possible, just in case they caught him. And then, the mascot suddenly reached out with its hand toward Dan. Dan reflexively put his hand forward in self-defense, but the mascot had no intention of harming. Dan looked closely into the mascot's hand to see a red hard card with the Chuck E. Cheese logo in there. His eyes widened in surprise.
Don't play at the machines until after dark. Although it's definitely more fun at night, when everybody is already sleeping at home at 3 a.m.
It was true. The rumor in the videos was true. Dan looked at the card in the mascot's hand and took it after a moment's hesitation. Then, with great joy, he thanked the mascot and quickly left. Now Dan was standing in the front of the entrance and trying to figure out how to get in. His watch pointed exactly at 3 o'clock. The door suddenly opened, and the mascot, Chuck E. Cheese, appeared and waved for Dan to come in. He was so jittery, but decided to step inside. The inside of the store was pitch black. All the gaming machines were off.
Now then, how to start?
But the mascot disappeared before Dan finished his sentence. Dan felt a little scared, but he couldn't quit here. He turned on the flashlight and continued to go deeper. After he took a few more steps, suddenly the screen at the stage lit up to guide the way. His heart was pumping so fast. Finally, it was time to lift the veil about all of this mysterious stuff. He followed the instructions and reached the corridor shortly thereafter. At the end of the hallway was a huge door with a magnetic lock. Dan took out the red card previously given to him by the mascot and swiped it. The door opened.
Yes!
When he stepped through the door, a horrible odor broke out, causing Dan to immediately cover his nose. It was a large room full of gaming machines like the store outside. Those machines looked old with patchy stains and rust, but seemed to work fine. A faint whisper from the darkness startled Dan. He followed the sound. The nearer he got, the clearer the sound was. And when the 4 mascots appeared in the dark corner of the room, Dan was completely petrified. They looked very monstrous and creepy. On the costumes crisscrossed with stitches, the fur was thick, dirty and messy. There were patches of exposed skin.
Please, help us.
Oh my God! They were all humans! And those were not normal mascot costumes, but real human skin. Someone had sewn patches of skin and fur on those bodies to make them the living mascots.
Let's butter up the pizza with a special butter sauce.
Dan felt a quiver down his spine. When he turned around, Charles the mascot came with a sharp knife in his hand. Dan fortunately dodged the slashes of the knife, but still suffered an injury to his hand. The mascot kept swinging the knife. Panicked, Dan rushed towards the door with all his strength before getting stabbed with the knife. He rushed out of the restaurant, heading forward without looking back. Luckily, he reached the police station before losing consciousness from blood loss. According to Dan's testimony, the police came to investigate the scene. They found the secret chamber and the victims that were turned into mascots. They were the investors who planned to replace the restaurant with a big hotel. The owner was arrested after that. He was the one that wore the mascot. He loved the restaurant insanely. The owner decided to kidnap and punish the investors after they threatened to destroy his restaurant. And of course, he was also the mastermind of the horror story in Chuck E. Cheese 3 a.m. My girlfriend, Rosamund, was an Instagram influencer famous for her vegetarian lifestyle. To me, her eating habit was way annoying, especially when we hung out together. For example, while all I wanted was a quick meal at McDonald's, Rosamund was the opposite. She really hated it when I munched a burger. On one of our dates, we decided to go shopping, then eat out at noon. On the long street, we couldn't find any other restaurants other than McDonald's.
No, not again!
Rosamund shook her head.
Come on, Rosie. I'm so hungry. You don't love me anymore, huh?
I insisted. After a while, she eventually reluctantly followed me to my heaven of fast food. Rosamund seemed so disturbed at the menu.
Looks like I have to starve myself again.
She got angry because there were no vegan dishes. She left me at the counter and stormed to the booth. So I ordered my usual Big Mac combo meal and an unsweetened iced tea. When I came back with the food, Rosamund suddenly changed her attitude. Just a few seconds ago, she was mindlessly scrolling through Instagram.
Hope you enjoy eating meat. Yay!
She pouted and turned away. She acted as though I were sinning just because I was eating a burger.
Come on, Rosie. One bite won't make you sick.
I begged her again.
One bite? It's meat! Don't you care about those animals?
Rosie frowned at me, then pointed at the burger with an annoyed expression. I understood that she was vegan, so she was annoyed to see me eat meat, but her reaction was too much. After a while, the manager came to our table. I was expecting to be kicked out, but he just smiled gently and offered his hand to Rosamund. It turned out he recognized my famous girlfriend and offered her $500 to review McDonald's new dish. To our surprise, he gave Rosamund a small box with the McDonald's logo.
This is a special combo only available at McDonald's. I hope you will consider this offer. They're all vegan,
he said, winking. Rosamund looked at the box, then back at the manager incredulously. The manager nodded affirmatively. So Rosamund took the box from the manager and said she would consider the offer. That night, my girlfriend live-streamed about a McDonald's food box instead of the usual high-fiber dishes. She gobbled everything in the box. and after every bite was a compliment about McDonald's food. But just as the live stream ended, she immediately ran to the bathroom and threw up everything.
There's no way that was vegan.
She grimaced and looked so annoyed. To be honest, I thought she was merely acting. But what surprised me more was that she asked me to go to McDonald's. Had she really changed her mind? When I entered the restaurant, I couldn't believe my eyes. Rosamund was sitting in front of a large order of fries, chicken, burgers, and soda. And she was devouring all of them like crazy. Rosie, are you okay? I sat down in front of her. Are these all vegan? She continued to shove the food into her mouth as if she were starving. Even though I was a McDonald's fan, I was a bit disgusted to see my girlfriend acting like this. She was like a robot, eating a bunch of food within minutes without any intention of stopping. I mean, the amount of food on the table seemed too much for even two people. Rosamund, are you all right? I worried. Looking around, I recognized some other KOLs that I followed on Instagram. They were behaving as ridiculous as my girlfriend. The manager I encountered the previous day was giving the same special boxes to those customers. After this, we had a quarrel about how she was completely ignoring me and only paying attention to the food. But Rosamund just didn't care about me, and she didn't post anything on Instagram either. After 3 days, I'd had enough, so I came to her house to find her. Gosh, the floor was covered in paper boxes and cups, some with leftovers, and they were all from McDonald's. Sitting on the sofa, my beautiful Rosamund was no longer herself. She looked literally like a human balloon. Her face was full of grease and oil. She could barely move with her limp legs, and her hands kept shoving food into her mouth. Rose! Rose! I was freaked out and worried. I tried to stop her, but she just kept ignoring me. She went totally crazy for the food. Listen to me. She was just busy with her stuffing career. Finally, I had to call 911. Rosamund was taken to the hospital. At the same time, the food was taken for examination. It turned out that in those special boxes, there was a sort of strongly addictive chemical that forced people into stuffing themselves and making their bodies bloat up. The evil manager, who was now wanted by the police, ran away with the money. And my Rosamund, I don't think she'll ever recover her mental health.
McDonald's! McDonald's! I want McDonald's! Give me McDonald's! Give me McDonald's!
My brother saw a ghost as a kid. 10 years later, I realized what he actually saw. So I was about 8 years old. My little brother was about 5. We lived in a fairly sparsely populated area since our dad worked construction out of town back then. It was often just 3 of us at the house for weeks. One summer morning, I went to my brother's room to wake him up for breakfast. That summer was quite hot, so everyone was drenched in sweat. But my brother was still covered with a blanket. Pulling off the blanket, I saw my brother's back was wet. His face was white and sweaty. When I asked him why he was covered in blankets in the middle of summer, he turned grumpy and said, "It's a secret. I can't tell you." To my surprise, I went down to the house to ask my mother, and she said that this situation has lasted for nearly a week now. That night, a hailstorm appeared out of nowhere. Since we were both excited, Mum let us stay up later than usual. It was well past our bedtime when our mum woke up off the couch to put us to bed. My brother and Mum both had a habit of waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I only knew this because I was always a light sleeper, and they just couldn't help flushing with the door wide open. This night, however, my brother stopped on his way to his room and came back towards the bathroom. I'm going to try to pee before I go to bed. The past few nights, I've been too afraid to walk to the bathroom. After a while of asking what scared my brother so much, he finally told me to bend down, then whispered in my ear, "Our house is haunted." Ignoring my cowardly expression, he continued, "That night, I thought it was Dad, so I approached him, but it was a mistake. There was a ghost with wild white eyes and was always dressed in orange. He said he won't harm you and Mum if I promise not to tell anyone, but I broke my promise." I was terrified by it. The fear of seeing a ghost like that at the end of the hallway or through the windows is the reason I started running from the stairs to my bedroom at night. After the summer vacation ended, my brother didn't mention it anymore, and I forgot about it too. Years later, when I was about 18, my mum and I had a conversation while we were on the run. We were sharing stories about Max's tendency towards destroying my shoes and other unruly behaviors when my mum blurted out, "Do you remember that time I opened the front door for the cops and Max ran inside to the kitchen and started tearing open that big bag of dog food we had?" This really caught me by surprise because in all the years I lived in that house, we never once called the cops. I asked her what she was talking about and she looked equally surprised, as if she had just revealed something by accident. "Oh, that's right. I never told you because you were too young at the time." And this is what my mother told me. On the day of the hailstorm when I was 8, my house was broken into by a stranger. That night, she got up at 3 a.m. to go to the toilet. As soon as she came out of the room, my mother suddenly heard a noise in the kitchen. She looked down from the stairs and saw a dim shadow. Mum was extremely scared but still tried to keep her eyes open. Suddenly, there was a flash of thunder, lightning through the window, allowed her to see the face of that person. And at the same time, he was startled and looked up the stairs, his eyes meeting hers. Those wild eyes haunted my mum for many years. My mother quickly grabbed the phone and carried my little brother into my room, locked the door, then immediately dialed 911. She couldn't remember all the details she gave them. A tall white man wearing a faded orange suit, something like that. Police said my mother's description matched the description of a man they were looking for in the area. It turns out he had escaped from jail on a murder charge. Now, I know it sounds so obvious hearing those two stories back to back, but it wasn't until last night that I pieced everything together. Both my mother and I, we never knew that my brother had unknowingly warned us about a murderer who spent multiple nights casing our home. What my brother saw was not a ghost or an imaginary figure, but a murderer that stayed in our house for no one knows how long. And since my brother broke his promise, he actually could kill us at any time. Maybe that night, he did plan it. Maybe that sound my mom heard from the kitchen is that he was finding a knife to kill all of us.
It happened in summer several years ago. That day, I discovered a painting titled Mrs. Night Friend while cleaning Lily's room. It was about Lily and a woman with extremely scary bloodshot eyes looked, surrounded by red, orange, yellow spots that looked like fire. The problem was that I had never heard of any friends from her before. I asked Lily about her new friend right at dinner. Lily happily showed me the picture. I asked her name.
Mrs. Knight, look here.
She looked over and pointed to the name in the corner of the picture. I asked her about the red eyes.
Because they were burned, Mommy.
Lily said innocently as she finished her dinner. The answer creeped me out, but I just simply thought that she had a good imagination.
So I can meet your friends?
I looked at her tenderly. She suddenly froze. Her face turned darkened. She stared at me with her big, beautiful eyes.
Do you really want to see her?
My heart suddenly pounded, and I nodded slightly.
Let me ask her first.
She finished her words and left the dining room. Since then, I felt the paranormal things happening in the house. For example, the sound of footsteps walking upstairs, or the crunching from the kitchen. But every time I went to check, I just found nothing. I thought it was some strange animal entering, because there were actually many trees and bushes out surrounding our house. That night, I brought some fruit to Lily's room. Then I heard her whispering to someone. There was a loud bang when I was about to knock on the door. I panicked and quickly turned the doorknob, but it was locked from the inside. I banged on the door, panicking, calling out,
Lily, what's happening? Open the door!
After a while, Lily opened the door. I looked inside but didn't find anything suspicious. Lily just stood there, bewildered, and looked at me. I asked her what happened. She said with a frown,
Mrs. Knight, she doesn't want to see you, Mom.
Then her gaze gradually shifted in another direction. Looking at her dirty hands, I guessed that she was just trying to distract me from punishing her. I sighed, took her to the bathroom to wash her hand and face, while warning her from playing with dirt before going to bed ever again. I finished taking out the trash, then came inside. That was when I saw Lily standing on the edge of the stairs. What was weird was that Lily was blindfolded, and she looked like she was going to fall. I worriedly yelled, which startled her. She took off her blindfold and smiled at me. She told me that she was playing hide and seek with Mrs. Knight, and asked me to join her, and promised to let me meet her mysterious friend.
Now we hide, and you seek, okay?
She said, handing me the blindfold. I put it on, then counted from 1 to 10. The sound of pounding footsteps faded away. After that, I left my spot, starting to find her. I guessed that she was hiding in the closet, so I went there to find her. I called her name, then I heard applause from her bedroom as a response. I followed the wall, opened the door, and walked in.
Boo!
I opened the closet, but it was completely silent inside. The sound of clapping by my ears made me jump. My heart suddenly beat so fast.
Mommy?
Lily called me. I quickly took off my blindfold and ran towards her.
Why don't you go find me?
She looked at me reproachfully.
I thought you were hiding in the closet.
I explained.
So you found Mrs. Knight?
She seemed surprised. I was a little startled, but before I could react, she pulled me and said,
This time, Mrs. Knight will find. We must hide carefully.
After she finished talking, she giggled, and while counting, she pulled me out of the room. I hid in the kitchen and waited anxiously, but still no one came looking for me, only the sound of footsteps outside the living room. It was Lily's voiceless scream. I quickly jumped out. The scene in front of my eyes terrified me. A tall person was carrying Lily on her shoulder. I realized it was Mrs. Knight in Lily's picture. My daughter screamed and struggled. I panicked. Without thinking much, I pushed the woman down. Only then did I see her face. I was terrified. Her face was full of crimson scars that huddled together. Especially her eyes were red, and her lips were mixed with the scars, revealing only a wheezing hole. She went crazy, pushed me down to the floor, and rushed to strangle me. Lily stood beside her begging, but she squeezed even tighter. I struggled and grabbed a hard object on the floor, quickly hitting the woman on her head. When she stepped back, I hugged Lily and ran into the small storage room, locking the door. The woman screamed and banged on the door repeatedly. I was afraid to hug Lily in my arms, trembling to dial 911. The woman couldn't open the door, so she left. Before I could breathe in relief, I smelled gasoline, then burning. Smoke began to pour in from the outside. Soon the room was filled with smoke. I tried to hug Lily tightly, hoping she wouldn't breathe in the smoke. I could feel myself fading away. At the same time, I heard police sirens outside. Mrs. Knight was arrested while holding a gas can. Turns out it was a man with a mental illness. He used to be the owner of the house. Mrs. Knight had a 5-year-old child and loved her very much. But after discovering that she wasn't his, but his wife and her lover, he went mad and set the house on fire. The fire killed his wife and daughter and burned his entire face. According to the police, he had been living in our house for a month. I shuddered to discover that it was around the time when we moved in. Then I recalled the memory of the woman, the sparks of fire in Lily's painting, and the name Mrs. Nightfriend. And I suddenly realized that day was the same day when he set the fire a few years.
And Nick met each other at the Camping Lovers Club. Since then, they have always been together. At the end of October 2021, the couple went camping together in a remote and out-of-the-way area to celebrate Jack's new RV.
Are you sure you know the road?
It's been 3 days on the road, but Lucy and Jack haven't arrived at the destination yet. The place is deep in the woods and was barely discovered, so it's quite hard to find the path. "Yeah," Jack said in a certain voice. According to his plan, they would be there in 30 minutes. The luxuriant trees spread out almost to the middle of the lane. It's so dark that it's even harder for Jack to see. Suddenly, both Jack, Lucy, and their belongings go queasy. They've just crashed something very big. Jack quickly pushes the brake. The wheels slip a long way.
What the hell was that?
Lucy screams while Jack sweated with fear. It looks like a human body. Lucy freezes when she hears from Jack. After a while, they decide to take the flashlight to check.
Oh, shoot.
It seems like Jack was right. Under the wheels, they find a long bloodstain. Jack and Lucy follow that bloodstain. 1 meter, then 2 meters. Their hearts bounce faster as they step closer. It's so close now. "I think it's alive," Jack said. At that moment, the body suddenly jumps and scares the couple startled. Lucy heaves a sigh of relief when she finds that the body is a deer, and so does Jack. For a moment, he has thought he would go to jail.
Wait, this deer looks so strange.
Lucy sits down to see the deer better. It seems to be heavily injured before the accident. Its body is covered with blood, and the guts are coming out. The accident can't do that to a deer. But Jack doesn't care. He hastily says, "Let's get back to the van. I can feel that we are almost there." Lucy listens to Jack, gets back to the van, and they start the van. After moving for a while, they suddenly see a strange man who is asking for a ride. Jack slows down the vehicle so that Lucy can see the man more clearly. Gosh, his face is so disgusting. His clothes are like filthy rags. He doesn't even wear slippers. Lucy doesn't feel so well, so she shouts,
"Go, go, go!"
Finally, Jack doesn't stop the vehicle, as if they just keep driving. "Here it is! I told ya!" Lucy is so happy because they finally arrive. The raw and primitive scene is exactly what they expected, because she wants to save fuel for the trailer. Lucy suggests finding some wood for a campfire. Then they split. On her way, Lucy finds a tattered tent. Sometimes she finds some pieces of dead animals, but she only thinks that it's normal when wild animals can be around here. Soon, she comes back with wood in her hand.
Why is Jack taking so long? That's strange.
Lucy thinks. It's been a while, but Jack hasn't come back, so Lucy decides to rest on the trailer while waiting for Jack. But soon comes the sleepiness. Lucy quickly falls asleep. Lucy has no idea how long she has slept, but suddenly in her dream, she hears someone mumbling and rummaging in the trailer.
Jack, you're back?
Uh-huh. Lucy hears Jack's answers, so she keeps on sleeping. But then, suddenly, after a while, she smells a stench. More wondrously, her face turns itchy and wet. Lucy slowly opens her eyes. What is in front of her eyes is freaking her out. A few centimeters away from her face is a disgusting face. His eyes are glazing over as he's staring at her. His mouth is red and his drool splatters. At this moment, Lucy realizes the itchy and wet feelings on her face were from his licking. Lucy panics. She pushes the man and runs to the door. Lucy runs into the woods. In the dark, she hears the man's steps as he is right behind. Lucy keeps running and running. Suddenly, she trips over something that makes her fall down. Lucy looks around and finds her surroundings sticky, slimy, sloppy. When her eyes get used to the dark, she dazes.
Jack, are you okay?
But Jack doesn't move.
Jack?
Lucy looks down. Jack's guts are all out, like he has been ripped off. Lucy is so shocked that she doesn't even realize the psycho has been behind her.
Join your friend.
When she is hopeless, Lucy remembers the knife hanging on the side when she was picking the wood. So, as quickly as lightning, gets the knife and waves it around.
Get off before I call the police!
She seems to hurt the psycho because after that she hears him scream in pain. Then, all of a sudden, Lucy rushes to the RV, locks the door, and drives away. The RV runs on the road, quickly leaving the freaky area behind. Lucy's hands are shaking and her heart is pounding. Her head is full of questions. Who is that psycho? Why did he kill Jack? And at that moment, for no reason, Lucy recalls whispering in her dream, but this time, the sound is clearer than before. Slow down, slow down, slow down. Subconsciously, Lucy steps on the brakes, but the vehicle goes even faster. That's when she realizes that she has lost control. The trailer car kept running in her desperation.
An overnight fire claims one life in Escambia County. According to police, crews were called out to the crime scene just before 1 a.m. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. The victim has not yet been identified.
People just don't know how obsessed I am with winning. If I have to sit there and face myself and tell myself, you're a failure, I think that is worse. That is almost worse than death. I was inspired by Kobe Bryant since the first day I played, and he was also the reason why I am here today. And that is the end of the speech. Thank you for listening. So, what do you think? Mike stood on the podium, eager to ask for my thoughts on his speech. Without making him wait long, I replied,
"Very touching. You are the best."
Even though it's 3 days until the tournament, the principal told Mike to prepare a victory speech because everyone knew that the team superstar Mike would win the school trophy again with his perfect three-pointer. If only we knew that wouldn't happen. Mike, are you okay? Mike! Mike lay still, motionless. I tried to shake Mike up, but his eyes were still closed because of that car accident. Mike was in a coma for several days. The doctor said the accident would not take Mike's life, but would certainly end his basketball career. It's impossible for his leg to recover. And the tournament came. Even though I was still in pain from the accident, I still replaced Mike on the field. I not only fight for him, but also fight for the team, for my school. Kyle! And he made it. He got his first perfect three-pointer. This can't be true. Despite working hard, I never thought I could be as good as Mike. Loudspeakers, cheering fans, but my head is empty. You know, I was not used to this much attention. As if reading my mind, the coach patted me on the shoulder and encouraged. You have the right to be happy for your first achievement. It's been a month, but Mike still hasn't woken up from the coma. Due to the tight schedule of exams and practice plan, I can't visit him often. And one day I stopped visiting him because, like the coach said, I should spend that time to focus on training myself. By the end of the year, that is 5 months since the accident happened, I've been practicing so hard since there's only 1 week left until the elimination round of the national tournament. It was 9 p.m., and apart from the coach and I, the team had already left. School is about to close. Go get your things and we can go home together. Then, since my stomach was upset, I walked straight to the bathroom and stayed there for more than 30 minutes. I'm done. Sorry for being late. Before I finished speaking, I suddenly saw a familiar and strange figure. My God, it's Mike. How did he wake up without me knowing? Mike, the guy in a wheelchair, fidgets with the ball and is about to perform a three-pointer shot from the middle of the field. With that posture, I doubted him, but still didn't want to distract Mike, so I gently sat down to watch. Mike gently raised his hand and made a powerful throw. That's a great throw. Just by then, the ball went straight into the basket like everything was programmed. It fell to the ground, but the resounding sound was a bit off, strange, and creepy. I don't know why, but the ball doesn't bounce like a regular basketball anymore. Now that I noticed it, it was a human head. A bald head. God, that's the coach's head. I can't believe what's happening in front of my eyes. Mike, my best friend, murdered the coach? Terror stabbed my heart. I couldn't move even a single finger. Mike seemed to sense my presence ever since because I heard him saying, "Kyle, what about you? Why are you hiding the fact that you're the coach's son?" Can't. It can't be. Why does he know that secret? We never said a word about it. How could he know, he said. My naive Kyle. I was not in a coma the whole time. You didn't know that, did you? Just then, I remember sitting next to Mike's bed, talking on the phone with my dad, who's also my coach. Yeah, it worked. He hasn't woken up yet. But, Dad, I didn't know you wanted to take his legs just for this.
The tragic death of Mary Martin, a 17-year-old girl, had caused a media stir. The murderer has yet to be identified. Police are continuing their investigation into...
Max turned off the TV and wiped off the tears on his cheeks. His limbs were still shaking. It was an email from Dr. Finn, which included the address of his clinic. Dr. Finn was his last hope of treating his severe insomnia. Max quickly changed his clothes and headed to the clinic. The clinic was located in a rather old residential area, which was difficult for Max to find. There was no signboard outside, which made him a little suspicious if this was a legal clinic. But it took him a long way here, so he didn't want to go home empty-handed. With the tired appearance of someone who had not slept for a long time, he knocked on the door. Dr. Finn was wearing a stained blouse, emaciated, and his voice was muffled. He invited Max to sit down on the worn sofa, then started to ask about his condition. Max said that he had insomnia and always felt very tired. Finn nodded his head, then handed Max a bottle of pills. "This is the cure." Max looked at the white bottle without a label. He frowned slightly and his face was filled with skepticism. "Don't worry. I've cured a lot of people." Finn nodded as he pointed to a photo on the wall in which he stood in the middle. To persuade Max, Finn gave him a 20% discount and one more bottle as a bonus. Max finally agreed to buy the medicine from Finn, then rushed home. That night, Max had a good night of sleep. It had been a long time since he had slept so well. The first week passed well. One night, while Max was sleeping soundly in bed, his whole body felt suddenly so heavy. When he opened his eyes, he saw a black shadow hovering under the ceiling. Max couldn't move, as if his whole body were pressed down by hundreds of tons. That strange shadow suddenly rushed towards him. It was close enough that Max could clearly see its eyes, and its mouth was slightly white. And it was trying to merge with his body. In a second, the shadow got closer and closer. Its legs merged with his legs, then hands. Max kept struggling in horror, but nothing could help him out. The shadow's mouth opened, and there came a high-pitched scream. Startled out of his sleep, he tried to control his breathing, sweat already drenching his body. His limbs were finally able to move again. He must get away from this horrible darkness, but had no strength left.
Police are revealing more clues around the murder of Mary Martin. They are currently locating the suspect and increasing monitoring around the...
Max turned off the TV. Max was exhausted. He looked pale and visibly thinner. His eyes were sunken from lack of sleep, and his hair was messy. But he couldn't reach Dr. Finn. Max had been texting Finn about his situation since last night, but the doctor hadn't responded, and he hadn't picked up the phone either. Looking helplessly at the white bottle on the table, Max's mind went blank. He really needed that medicine. He would die without using it. The next night, he had sleep paralysis again. This time it was even much worse than before. Max heard wheezing in his ears. He even felt liquid drip from the shadow's mouth onto his face. After struggling to regain consciousness, Max took more medicine. While he was drifting off to sleep, he felt his whole body stiffen again. This time, he clearly saw the shadow shaped like a girl wearing a dirty dress. Her neck cut off and throat exposed. Max knew who she was. "Mary! Mary! Mary!" Max repeated the name in panic. Mary's ghost moved closer, squeezing Max's neck. Mary's shrill scream rang out. Her mouth opened wide, from which it spewed a slimy mass of fluid and maggots that fell directly into Max's face. Max woke up to find his whole body sweating. He immediately grabbed the medicine bottle from the desk drawer, poured the pills all into his mouth, and frantically drank water to digest them. Soon the bottle went empty. After swallowing all the pills, Max gasped heavily. Suddenly, he felt something wrong. His eyes rolled back. A painful feeling spread through his body, causing him to spasm his muscles. He clutched his throat and felt a hot flash burning his intestines. Max writhed in agony on the cold floor, struggling with a foaming mouth, his breathing even more difficult. After a while, Max stopped moving. He lay curled up, motionless on the floor, with wide white eyes.
A man has been found dead in his own apartment. Remarkably, this man is the boyfriend of the poor Mary Martin and is also the prime suspect in the murder. According to the police, he was paranoid after
the game of chance event at the newly opened Starbucks store downtown. Although Elena and I arrived very early, the area in front of the store was already packed with many people. Everyone wanted to be the lucky owner of the prize, which was a limited edition cup. While waiting for the host, Elena and I each ordered a cup of coffee. It was good as always. After a while, the event started.
Dear customers, now it's time for me to draw the name of the luckiest and only guest to own this most beautiful cup. Who will be the lucky one?
That cup will belong to me.
Looking at the cup from afar, I silently wished that my name would be called. If I didn't win it, I thought I would negotiate and buy it back anyway.
And today's lucky customer is a guest named E-L-E-N-A! Elena! Please step onto the stage to receive this special cup.
Elena jumped for joy. I didn't know why, but while smiling at her, I was also a bit uncomfortable. On the way back, I asked to hold the cup for a second, but what she said got me so mad.
I'll never give it to you, Jade. That would also transfer my luck to you, and I got none left.
I went crazy and told myself that I would do anything to get that cup. At this moment, a truck came from afar. Elena was so happy about the limited edition cup that she didn't even notice. I was about to push Elena away, but in a flash of a moment, I thought about the cup and her arrogance, and so I just glared at her. The car crash sounded right next to my ears. Elena was now under the wheel of a truck. The Starbucks cup rolled out and stopped at my feet. I picked it up.
This has to be mine.
I turned to Elena and then ran off. The ambulance arrived shortly thereafter, but Elena was no longer breathing. After Elena's death, the entire Starbucks cup collection belonged to me.
Elena, if only you hadn't said those words, you wouldn't have taken that.
After moving to a new place and getting rid of Elena, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But things didn't last long. That night in my sleep, I heard Elena's voice. I woke up with sweat on my forehead in the dark room alone.
Maybe it was just a nightmare.
I thought to myself and tried to get back to sleep. During the following days, the same nightmare kept coming. I just closed my eyes and Elena's image appeared. After a few days of insomnia, my eyes were dark. I had to keep taking sleeping pills to get a full night's sleep, but nothing changed. That night when I fell asleep after taking some medicine, the image of Elena appeared outside the door.
Chicky, you tried to push me. Have all of those cups. Give me back.
I tried to sit up but couldn't move.
Give me back
I struggled in despair. Elena squeezed my throat tighter. Just when I was about to suffocate, I was able to get up. During that night, I was so scared that I couldn't sleep anymore. The next morning, I collected all of Elena's cups and took them home to her parents. I wanted to tell them everything about how I knew the truck was coming but did nothing. But before I could say anything, Elena's mother cried and told me how Elena wanted to give me the cup for my birthday to surprise me.
Oh, Elena.
After hearing Elena's mother's words, on the way back home, my mind went blank. Suddenly, in front of my eyes was a girl holding a Starbucks cup with a happy face. Crossing the street, a high-speed truck was coming from afar. I didn't think much before screaming out and then running to push the girl away. But before I passed out, the last image was Elena's face smiling. Some weeks relaxing somewhere in the suburbs. This year, I decided to find a place on Craigslist. You know, on Craigslist, you can buy or rent anything. I mean anything. So I found a fully furnished 2-story apartment for $800 a month. After finishing the forms they required, I moved into the accommodation. The owner had opened the door before I arrived. Impressive. I was glad he did that. But then I realized this house was not like I expected. It looked dark and a bit mysterious and smelled like something fishy, which almost made me throw up. When I opened the kitchen window, I saw some blood streaks on the sink. Maybe the owner had not cleaned up after cooking. Oh, that would explain the smell. I sighed and washed them away. The rest of the house was not any better. Every room was so messy and covered in a thin dust layer. I was quite disappointed. No wonder the rent was only $800. I went out into the yard to sit on the swing for a while, and then made a video call to my fiancée, Hazel. While talking with her, I noticed a man standing outside the fence staring at me. "Hi, can I help you?" I smiled politely, but he didn't say anything, just got into the car and drove away.
What's the matter?
Hazel asked. "No problem, just a weird old man." Through the screen, I took Hazel on a tour around the house. I showed her the floor with many colorful rugs, among which there was a rug with the vintage pattern that she loved so much. But it smells bad. Seemed like no one had ever washed it for a century. Maybe tomorrow I'll call the cleaning service. In the evening, I went to prepare dinner. I switched on the light. Nothing happened. However I tried, those lights did not light up. I went to check the main panel only to find that the fuse was burnt black. I felt like I was cheated by the house owner. What the hell is that? I was startled to see the weird old man again, driving slowly along the road and staring at me through the glass doors. And he smiled. "Sir, is there anything I can do for you?" But he disappeared before I got to the door. What's wrong with this guy? I mumbled and went into the house. The next morning, I called an electrician to fix the light system. After an hour, a guy named Nick rang the doorbell. He walked into the house and immediately covered his nose. "Sir, forgive me if I was rude, but do you smell something like dead rats in this house?" he asked me. I sniffed and realized that was the smell I found yesterday. "This looks like a murder scene." Nick laughed, but immediately stopped when he saw me frowning. "But I must say the house smells very horrible." "Yeah, maybe it was from the dirty rugs. I'm gonna have them cleaned now," I said. Then Nick offered to help me take those rugs to the laundromat. While waiting for him to check the electrical system, I went out to the yard to make a phone call.
I'm afraid you may also need to call the rat exterminators,
Nick said while helping me lift the rug to his car. Both of us were dizzy because of its odor.
Oh, what the hell is that?
Nick suddenly said. When we lifted it up to see what was beneath, Nick and I both froze. Underneath the rug was a human-shaped stain, on which were traces of liquid, blood, and something I couldn't even name. There were also blood stains on the floor. I followed the trails of blood and discovered that there was blood underneath all the rugs. Both Nick and I couldn't hold it anymore. We ran out of the house and threw up. After my call, the police quickly came to investigate and got in touch with the homeowner. But his answer took us back.
This isn't my house?
Nick and I looked at each other without saying a word. It turned out that the house next door was the one I rented on Craigslist and should have moved in, not this one. Meanwhile, the house I just spent one night in belonged to the strange old man I met. I couldn't help but tremble when thinking that maybe last night he snuck into the house and tried to kill me. How lucky I was. The door was locked, so he couldn't get in. One, especially for a meat eater like me. Have you ever got almost crazy trying to control your craving for meat? If yes, then you know how I felt. One day, while walking down the street, I suddenly smelled an ecstatic scent from the newly opened Chick-fil-A store.
Want to try our new dish?
An employee with a plate of chicken approached me.
No thanks, I'm a vegetarian. Come on, just a piece, won't kill anyone.
He kept inviting, and so did the chicken on the plate. I put forth a lot of effort maintaining a vegan diet, and just one bite could ruin it all. But that smell and the soft texture of the chicken, I miss that old feeling.
Okay, just one bite.
So I said yes, just one piece. No one will know. He joyfully gave me the menu, and the delicious dishes on there dazzled my eyes.
What would you like to order?
She smiled. Yes, please. One Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich. One Chick-fil-A... Oh my gosh, what did I just do? The guilt surged. I wanted to get up and leave, but I couldn't. The smell of delicious fried chicken. A waiter brought the food out. That sandwich seemed so alluring. And then I took a bite. Oh my gosh, it was, how to say, so divine. It tasted so different from the other sandwiches I tried before. I couldn't help devouring it. Just after a few minutes, the food boxes were empty. Oh no, oh no, look what I just did. Guilt quickly engulfed me. I was scared and frustrated, and then ran out of the store. That night, I had a high fever and terrible nausea, so I rushed to the bathroom. Strangely enough, I didn't vomit, but instead coughed violently. And then, from my mouth, I pulled out a feather. And when I looked in the mirror, I discovered that I had white hairs on my face, and they felt very itchy. I picked them up. Ouch! Were these hairs growing out from me?
Michael, are you okay?
My mother nervously called at the door.
I'm fine.
I didn't want my mom to know all of this. I gritted my teeth and endured it, tried to pull out the hairs one by one, even though my face was bleeding.
I shouldn't have eaten it. I shouldn't have eaten it.
After getting rid of the hairs, I went to bed and prepared to sleep. I hid those chicken feathers under the pillow. The next morning, I woke up tired. I yawned, but realized my voice was different. Okay, wait, what happened to my throat? I screamed, but the only sound that came out was a chicken croaking. I panicked and ran to the bathroom. Oh my God! My head had turned into a chicken's head. I cried.
Michael, what's in there? Are you okay?
My mother banged on the door. How could I let my mother see this form? But she kept banging on the door nervously. I panicked, put on my hat, and ran out of the room. I turned into a monster! I broke down, sobbed, but only heard the chicken croaking. I dared not raise my head to see people. As I ran across the Chick-fil-A store, the smell of fried chicken invited me in again. I didn't dare to speak, but only pointed at the menu with my sleeve. No one had seen my monstrous appearance. My delicious dish was brought out. I was about to eat when a staff member accidentally spilled a glass of water on me. So I reflexively took off my hat. She saw my appearance and shouted. Monster. Everyone in there started to yell.
Monster! Monster!
Those eyes made me panic. I was so scared, so dizzy that I could barely stand. I'm a monster! I rushed out of the Chick-fil-A store in a panic.
Hey! Please wait!
I couldn't hide my horrible appearance. People's eyes made my heart break. Monster. I was about to turn into a chicken. It was my mother.
Michael! Michael! Where are you? Where are you?
She sounded so scared and worried. I wished I could call her, wished I could tell her what happened. But what came out of my mouth was just... And then when I was in despair, I didn't even notice that I was out in the middle of the road. I woke up to find myself in the hospital. Panicked, I raised my hand to touch my face. My whole face was bandaged. Mommy?
I'm Skylar, and I'm an orphan. So is Nick. We spent the first 18 years of our lives in a dilapidated foster care, and kids there were treated poorly. As soon as we turned 18, we were kicked out, and from then on, we lived on the streets.
Skylar, I found a place. It's a luxury restaurant called King of Mukbang. Let's just go there, and for sure, we'll have very good food.
Nick is skinny, but he can eat tons of food at once. Whenever given a box of rice or several servings of McDonald's fried chicken, Nick always finished them all in a blink. Anyway, it's been raining for the past few days and we have nothing to eat, so I agreed to go with him. Like Nick said, King of Mukbang is a luxury restaurant. And there they are. Even the trash cans of the rich show an unusually clean appearance.
Here's yours. We need to eat fast before someone notices us and drives us away.
Nick hands me a bag of meat leftovers and keeps a bag of greens, mostly avocados and mangoes. Like a long-starved animal, Nick shoved his face into the garbage and chewed voraciously. Perhaps because we were so focused on eating, we didn't realize we were being watched.
Well, 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 look who I found.
Nick and I both jumped when hearing the voice. Turns out it was a gentleman, dressed in a luxurious suit.
He must be someone from that restaurant.
I thought. While Nick and I remained silent, he gave us his visiting card and introduced himself.
Well, just call me Alex. Sorry, I didn't mean to bother you, but you're such a talent.
He stared at Nick and said, as written in the card, Mr. Alex is the headhunter of a large entertainment company, specializing in finding talent for his huge YouTube channel Eco Network. Nick was originally a shy, reserved person. He looked at the card and reluctantly asked the man,
"What do you want?"
And this is how it all started. Mr. Alex invited Nick to film something about eating and drinking and promised to make him a star.
You heard it right. You won't have to do anything. Just eat. I'll pay you well. And besides, you'll have a nice shelter and nice clothes.
Nick thought about it for a while. After all, he said yes under one condition. The man has to give me the same treats. At first, he agreed to give me the money too. I didn't need to go to school to know that making money can't be that easy.
Nick, don't listen to him. I feel like he's not a good person.
Nick knows we can't trust people, but this time, he insists.
So what? At least you and I don't have to eat the trash.
Then, he walked away with a man named Alex. If only Nick could see the monstrous smile on that man's face before he left. Mr. Alex has brought me money like he promised. I don't know how much money Nick made, but a month later, I had an apartment to stay in. I even had enough money to buy a laptop and an old phone. At first, Nick and I couldn't meet in person, but we still talked on the phone.
You know what? I've never eaten that much food in my life. I'll send you the link to watch me on YouTube.
I clicked on the link. Then, on the screen appeared about a dozen videos of Nick sitting in front of a mountain of food. All are fast food, spicy noodles, and sweets.
I thought you only ate things like vegetables and fruits.
In response, Nick said,
Yeah, but audiences don't want to see boring stuff like that. Besides, fast food is delicious as well.
After a few months, Nick appeared more regularly on YouTube with the new title,
The New King of Mukbang!
Gradually, he changed so drastically that I no longer recognized him. My old Nick was calm and gentle, but this one is so rude, not mentioning he gained tons of weight.
Oh my God, how come Nick turns into this person? What happened to him?
As more and more videos are uploaded, less phone calls are made. Until one day, it's impossible for me to reach him. It's been a week since the last time we talked, so I am extremely worried. Since Alex refused to say a word, I decided to follow him. The plan worked. I was led to a large warehouse. I came in to see many small rooms, all of which are dark. However, there was still one room that had the light on. It was the same room Alex had just entered. I moved as quietly as possible and sneaked a peek inside. The things I saw in that room make me shiver every time I think about it. There was a man wearing a red shirt that I didn't even recognize. That man was so overweight that I can't imagine how he could walk. He was tied to a large iron rod. Blood and brown liquid was all over his body.
Let me go! Let me go! You cannot do this to people!
Just then, Alex appeared. In his hand were a lot of pills. He put the whole bunch in that man's mouth and forced him to swallow them all. Only then, when I could look closely at the details of the face, I realized it was Nick. Although his face was much different from before, those eyes, lips were unmistakable.
For God's sake, take these pills! You have another video to shoot in 2 hours.
Nick threw up both in the mouth and in his bottom. He struggled, howling in the slime and smelling terrible. I was trembling inside. My hand shook so hard that I could barely hold the phone. But still, I tried to record the scene because I know no one would believe me without the proof. Just then, Alex spotted my presence.
I I don't clearly remember what happened after that. I ran like crazy and somehow I magically escaped from that warehouse. Of course, I reported it to the police. But even with the evidence I had, they still wouldn't believe me because I was just homeless after all. But you guys can. I believe that. And here's the video I took that day. Please bring justice back to Nick. Please, let me go.
If you don't shoot that video, you and that girl will be back to your garbage.
And I work at an old gas station in the suburb. That place is quite empty and has only a few visitors come by. I work the night shift with a girl called Laura. One night I went to work as usual, but that night I witnessed a terrifying incident that I would never forget.
Hey, take this outside and stick it on the board for me.
Laura stood at the cashier, and as soon as she saw me, she handed me a new price tag. Gasoline price has increased again. Just last week, it was only $2 a gallon. Now it's $5. Laura complained that this old damn gas station had already been solitude enough, and now thanks to the price increase, it will be closed soon. Calm down, it's the same everywhere now, I comforted her. The black SUV stopped at the station. Then a tall man with fierce eyes got out of the car. He was dressed sloppily, looked a little dirty and messy with loose hair, and looked like a tramp. He looked so poor. How could he afford an SUV? That was odd.
"Fill up the gas tank,"
he said, reaching into his pocket to pull out some change. He looked up at the price tag and then at the crumpled bundle of money in his hand, noticing that he didn't have enough money. These coins weren't even enough for a gallon.
"Damn it,"
he growled, and turned back in the car and rummaged around. Then he turned to me again.
"Pay you later,"
he said, and went inside the store. My dream car. I loved the black SUV, wishing I could touch it once, and so I put out my hand.
"Hey, what the heck are you doing?"
The man shouted with a glaring face and rushed to push me away. "I'm sorry." I bowed my head. At this moment, gasoline in the tank began to overflow, splattering on the ground. I could even smell it. "Sir, you forgot to pay!" I rushed to the front of the car, but the man didn't listen. He still started it. I had no choice but to poke my head inside the car to stop him. Gosh, something wafted up that got me dizzy. The car was filled with black plastic bags and messy clothes. He braked the car, angrily pushed the door, causing me to fall. He jumped out and kicked me in the dust. I writhed in pain and dodged.
"You bastard! Do you want to die?"
After hitting me, he grabbed my collar. "Sir!" I stammered, trembling.
"God damn it! Do I have to kill you too?"
He screamed, his eyes bloodshot and ferocious, his mouth wide open menacingly. Fortunately, Laura ran to us, threatened to call the police, only to make him let go of me. He was still driving furiously, and yet didn't pay a dime for the gasoline.
Are you okay?
Laura worriedly helped me up. My whole body was dirty. My clothes were rumpled. My hands and feet were shaking. Laura quickly comforted me and told me to go inside and change my clothes. I stood up, but still not fully recovered from fear. While raising my eyes to watch the car go away, I noticed something laying on the road, apparently from the other man's car. I narrowed my eyes and stepped closer. Ah! I screamed in horror when I discovered that it was a severed arm. Gosh, that arm was pale. The cut was still bloody with a little white bone. I was so scared that I fell to the ground. Laura heard the scream and ran over, saw the thing on the ground, and threw up right at the place. From the distance came the signal of the car. Thought it was the man coming back. I immediately pulled Laura into the store and tried to lock the door. The car came, slowly stopped outside the gas station. I looked up daringly, peeking through the window. the fierce man from earlier came back. He stopped the car right near the severed arm, got out, looked around, then picked up the hand and put it in the trunk. Then he suddenly returned to the shop, which made me stiff. Laura hastily pulled me down to hide. I could hear his footsteps approaching. The door-knocking sound scared us to death, but we still had to cover our mouths to stop ourselves from making a sound while the door was about to burst open.
I will find you, gas station bastard!
He growled to threaten us. I heard footsteps, followed by the sound of a car engine fading away. After the man had actually left, Laura decided to dial 911. Based on our testimony and the camera footage, the police identified a man named Eric. After killing his girlfriend, he sawed up her body and threw the body parts and her belongings in the trunk to dump them away. No one suspected him on the way until he drove past the gas station and dropped the arm from his trunk.
I will find you!
Keen-eyed guy she had swiped left a few minutes ago. Hi. He started first, just the way she liked. So two of them texted each other for hours until he asked to meet Hazel for a coffee somewhere. So she would meet Noah at a vintage bar downtown. She was so excited to see this handsome guy. But when she got there, Noah hadn't arrived. So she sat down at a table in the corner to wait. The doorbell rang. A well-dressed guy with neat and trendy hair walked in. Hazel wasn't sure, but when she saw those mesmerizing eyes, no more doubt. That was exactly the one.
Noah.
Hi, are you Hazel? He asked and smiled. Hazel couldn't help but keep staring into Noah's eyes. His green eyes were so intense. Noah was still waiting for the answer.
Yes, I'm Hazel. Have a seat.
So the two started a conversation. Everything seemed to go smoothly, except for an awkward moment when Hazel paused for too long, staring into Noah's beautiful eyes. You all right? He asked.
Yeah.
She took a sip of wine.
Oh, but I have to say that your eyes are so pretty, Noah.
Hazel suddenly leaned forward as if to make eye contact, causing Noah to jump back a little.
I wish I could have those eyes of green.
Then Hazel wanted to touch his eyes, but suddenly she felt dizzy. Everything around her spinned. Hazel felt something was wrong, and when she looked over at Noah, she only saw his eyes staring at her and smiling evilly. Hazel reached her hands to Noah, but before she could do anything, she collapsed on the table. Hazel woke up to feel her whole body heavy like water. She could barely open her eyes.
Where is this place?
She looked around. This was an old, dilapidated room with a strong, musty smell. And there was a small window that looked over a vast forest. This place looked like an abandoned house. She heard footsteps and then sat up and waited to see that face again. All she could do now was shake in fear. That was Noah. He greeted her with that smile again. Good to see you back. He grinned so weirdly.
Let me out, Noah! Let me out! Let me out!
Scream however you want. No one can hear you anyways. Noah looked at his prey in fear. Hey, naive girl, don't you know that there are a lot of bad people on Tinder? How can you go meet someone you just talked to so easily? Noah pressed Hazel's face. His hand lifted her chin up. She stared at those eyes, which were now full of evil thoughts. He threw her on the floor. Her back hit the ground. She struggled with all her might, but her hands were restrained, so she couldn't move. Noah laughed out loud when he saw that. But this was out of his expectation.
Damn it, Hazel!
He screamed.
This is not good!
Noah fell on his back. He didn't expect that while he was still busy fidgeting, Hazel broke free of the ropes and waited for an opportunity to counterattack and surprise him. Noah was angry. His green eyes were full of red blood. He must punish Hazel. Noah staggered back and was horrified by the wound on his chest. In Hazel's hand was a knife hidden in a comb. Now he saw Hazel crouched close to his face. Her innocent face now seemed so different, so evil. Noah tried to raise his hands to grab her, but he was like a fish out of water, unable to do anything.
Hey, be quiet. Everything will be all right.
Ignoring Noah writhing in pain, Hazel got up and paced around the room to examine.
Thank you for leading me to such a wonderful place where no one could hear your miserable screams.
Hazel sneered. Noah was so scared. What are you gonna do?
Oh, don't cry. Your eyes won't look good anymore.
Hazel stroked Noah's hair, comforting. Noah panicked, weakly trying to back away, but Hazel had a knife in her hand.
It won't hurt.
Hazel gently placed that pair of eyes covered with blood and cords inside the small box.
So beautiful!
Hazel lay in her room, her legs dangling in delight, her fingers gliding tender evenly.
Ooh. This color is so pretty too.
A new match from Tinder.
It's almost 11 o'clock. Hopefully they're still open.
Marble said to herself. She was on her way home when the hunger pain came. She stopped by Burger King's drive-thru to buy some food. When she pulled up to the order machine, there was no staff's welcome.
Why is it so quiet in there?
Thinking a while, she raised her voice.
Hello? Is there anybody there? I'd like to get some food.
The order board lit up, but still no response.
Hello? Can you hear me? Looks like I have to go inside to order.
She drove to the pickup counter, inside of which was an employee dressed in a Burger King mascot. He was doing something in the kitchen.
Hey you, I placed an order earlier in the drive-thru line, but no one was there, so I came inside.
Hearing her voice, the man turned around and stared at her face. His eyes were bloodshot. His face was white. He was holding a piece of fresh meat, trying to spread an industrial smile. He said,
"Hello, how can I help you?"
He raised his hand to adjust the paper crown on his head. Marble was too hangry to care about this man's scary look. She immediately said,
Can I order here?
Sure, of course.
Okay, can I have a regular hamburger and a strawberry shake?
Got it. It'll just be a few minutes.
15 minutes had passed. Marble was still in the car waiting.
What's wrong with this place?
She rolled down the window and called inside.
Hey! Why is it taking so long? I've been waiting for 15 minutes!
Only silence.
Fair enough. Let's go in there to see where my food is.
Marble drove to the parking lot and entered the store. The store was unusually quiet. Suddenly, she heard rustling just above her head. She looked up to the ceiling and saw that somebody was crawling in a plastic pipe.
Hey! Who's up there?
That figure suddenly stopped.
I know someone's up there!
The shadow continued to crawl until the end of the pipe, then stuck its head out. It was a man in a Burger King uniform. Before Marble could say anything, the man raised a shushing finger, telling Marble to be silent. Then he whispered, "You should get out of here." Marble still didn't understand what was going on. She angrily said,
"What a bunch of nonsense!"
Then she walked over to the counter and peeked into the kitchen to see the mascot guy doing something. Marble loudly called out,
Hey you! What's wrong with this place?
Hearing Marble's voice, the man immediately turned around and stared at her.
"Oh, it's you!"
Yes, it's me. Where's my food?
With that industrial smile again, he walked towards the cash register slowly.
"Are you hungry?"
Yes! I'm starving! Bring me my food!
"Just a second."
He turned around, walked into the kitchen, and grabbed a hamburger with his hand.
"Here you go. A regular hamburger, right?"
Marble suddenly trembled when she saw the hamburger in his hand. It was not an ordinary burger. Between the two buns was a human hand still bleeding. At this moment, Marble suddenly remembered the employee crawling in the pipe earlier. She turned her shaking head to look at the pipe in the ceiling. Just then, the Burger King man yanked her by the hair and smashed her head against the cash register.
"Where are you looking? Aren't you going to take the burger?"
Marble cried and begged.
Please! Let me go!
"Eat your burger."
While he spoke, the crazy Burger King man stuffed the burger into her mouth. Marble tried to resist, but the guy laughed and forced her to eat the human hand burger.
Help! Please, help!
Marble pleaded for help from the man inside of the pipe, but got no answer.
"No one can help you." "No one! Now eat your hamburger! Now eat your hamburger!"
She had no more strength to resist and soon fainted. He grabbed her by the hair and dragged her into the kitchen. At this time, the other man looked down from the pipe and desperately said, "I'm sorry." Marble burst into tears and passed out. The next morning, the police received the report from Marble's family. They went to Burger King only to find 2 victims dead in a state of disfigurement, including Marble. Some of her body parts were scattered in the oven, and some were found in a blender. According to the employee in the pipe, the murderer killed the original employee wearing the mascot, then put on that suit himself, entered the staff area, and massacred the employees on that shift. Since then, no matter how hard the police tried, they never captured that Burger King murderer. But someone said that they could see a figure, a Burger King mascot, walking around at 11 o'clock at night.
When I was 10, I had a group of close friends. Besides me, there were 3 other kids named Flix, Jack, and Adrian. Remind you, I was a hyperactive child and often played tricks. I remember everything like it was yesterday. On the radio, a mentally ill patient was reported to be hiding in my area. and my parents didn't allow me to play outside. Yet, I was too excited for the upcoming exploration with my friends, so I didn't care. It was a large old house that had been abandoned for a long time. It was fenced with barbed wire, and the large gate was locked. However, there was a small hole in the back wall that was close to the grass, so kids like us could get through. When the group gathered at the place, we crept into the house and started our favorite game, hide and seek. This house is a perfect place to play this game because it's large and has many different rooms. Rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. I was the seeker. I blindfolded and counted while my friends ran away. 98, 99, 100. It didn't take me long to get Felix and Adrian, but it's not the same when it comes to Jack. You're hiding so well today, ain't you? As my patience was running out, I suddenly saw someone's shadow run past. It must be Jack. He knew I was coming, so he ran away to find another place to hide. I quickly followed him. It's so weird, because as soon as I thought I'm about to get him, I lost track of him. He kept disappearing and reappearing in another corner, which made me so tired. I finally gave up. Okay, I give up. Go back and start a new game. Hearing that, Jack stopped, but he just stood still. It didn't take me long to get Felix and Adrian, but it's not the same when it comes to Jack. Then all three had to go around the house together and find him. It wasn't until a while later that Jack came out from the master bedroom. He scratched his head and said, "Sorry, I hid in the closet and fell asleep. It was too warm and dark in there." At that time, I just found out that the closet in the bedroom has a recessed drawer. If you don't pay attention, you won't see it. Don't lie, I gasped. For sure you have just chased me around. But Jack firmly denied. My friends also joined in teasing me, telling me not to scare them. But if the person I'm chasing isn't Jack, then who was it? Since my friends did not believe me, I insisted that they return to the house. I will prove that there's another kid in the house, I thought. So the next night, the group went to that abandoned house again. Today, I am still a seeker. I'm counting. 1, 2, 3, I said aloud. For some reason, the house seemed colder and darker than usual. This time, my voice was echoing through the walls. The footsteps of Jack, Adrian, and Flix gradually faded away and disappeared. 98, 99, 100. I left the living room and started my gameplay. 10 minutes, 15 minutes passed, but strangely, I couldn't find anyone. Is there any chance at all they left the house? I thought irritably. I was about to leave when I saw a familiar shoe at the door of the laundry room. Those are Adrian's shoes. You're hiding so well today, ain't you? As my patience was running out. Adrian, where are you? Get out of here! I'm not kidding! I yelled angrily. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw his arm waving at me in the dark corner of the hallway. I rushed over, but Adrian ran away again, so I lost track of him. I was panting on my hips when I saw another arm waving at me from the top of the stairs. It must be Jack! My whole body went crazy, and Jack also ran away immediately. I just saw him running up the stairs, so I followed him. Unlike my expectations, the second-floor hallway was empty. I was standing sideways when I saw Felix's hand wave at me from the bedroom window in the distance. Out of the bunch, Felix is the slowest, so I'm sure he couldn't run fast if I chased him. I slowly approached, trying not to make a sound. But it suddenly dawned on me that something wasn't right. This window was a bit too tall for Felix. Is he standing on a chair? I pressed my face against the window to peer inside. Suddenly, Felix's head popped out of the doorway, causing me to jump and fall to the ground. But his face was strange. His eyes, blankly terrified, staring at me without blinking. I could hear my heart pounding. Felix? I called. Felix pulled his head and arm out of the window, and then I heard footsteps coming out. Oh my God, that's not Felix. Before my panicked eyes was a child. He has the same size, just like us, but with a wrinkled and yellowed face. His whole body was covered in blood, and he was holding a sharp knife in his hand. He laughed while walking towards me. Oops, you found me. Now it's my turn to seek. Then he grinned at me and started counting. I froze in fear for a few seconds, then immediately got up and ran at full speed. I wanted to get out of this house as quickly as possible, but as soon as I reached the stairs, I began to hear the heavy footsteps chasing me. Suddenly, I remembered the secret closet that Jack had hidden before. I hurried into the bedroom and lay there holding my breath. I could hear the sounds of that monster scurrying everywhere looking for me. Finally, due to fatigue and lack of oxygen, I passed out. I woke up to see myself in the hospital. It turned out that my parents and the police had been looking for us all night, and that they had brought me to the hospital. But my friends weren't that lucky. They couldn't come back. Looks like they were all lured and murdered by the monster. Later on, I learned that he was the mental patient police were looking for. Since he was as short as a child, he got through the hole in the back wall and turned that into his temporary shelter. His favorite thing to do is play hide and seek with children and then kill them. The most terrible thing is, until now, the police still couldn't catch him.